They call it the place too tough to tame. And today, some of the top drivers in all of iRacing get to take that challenge. Today, it's Darlington Raceway that will play host to the 2021 edition of the iRacing Darlington 500. Welcome to RaceSpotTV's coverage of today's special event as we look to see which drivers can conquer the Lady in Black. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary with Tower Maxson in the producer's seat for what's expected to be a very difficult race. 500 miles on the docket tonight, 367 laps at a track that is known for its difficulty to make moves and keep your car clean. First things first, Ewan, your thoughts on tonight as we get ready for Darlington.
Yeah, very excited. It's such a difficult track to get right, which means only the best can win here, and that's what's so exciting about here today. Of course, it's a special event as well, so there's nothing really on the line other than a bit of pride, so these guys can just go all out for it, which I'm very much a fan of, and I'm very much a fan of this circuit as well. It's very, very difficult, as you just mentioned, and it's wonderful. It really is. So very excited about tonight.
And for this race, it is the third of 4 full-distance events that take part in the NASCAR iRacing Series schedule. Tonight, we'll be following along with NIS Fixed Competition for its top split. Keep in mind that the season finale at Phoenix Raceway is also full distance. That could be seen later on in the year. And in that regard, it's a bit different compared to the air races where it is half distance for every other week that is not highlighted in yellow. It brings so many challenges, Ewan, to go full distance compared to the 50% distance the rest of the campaign.
Yeah, exactly. The mental fatigue and sometimes even the physical fatigue that actually brings a whole new dimension to the racing, really. And once again, only the best are going to be able to win here. It's not quite the longest night in all of racing. Obviously, the Coke 600 is going to take that one, but it's still a very, very long night here. And just surviving throughout the 367 laps we've got here today is going to be a big problem for all of these guys, I think. So it's going to be a very interesting challenge indeed.
Let's take a look at your track map for tonight, as Darlington Raceway is a bit of an egg-shaped oval at 1.366 miles. The reason for its shape is because of a minnow pond that is located at part of the property that made it a little bit more tighter at one end of the speedway. And while they have switched the location of the start and finish line over the years, it is still considered one of the most challenging tracks in all of racing to go to, Ewan.
Yeah, it is, and pit lane's very difficult to get onto here as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but even just driving this circuit on your own is very, very tricky. Let's see what happens when we put nearly 40 stock cars on there at the same time, because it's all for our entertainment, of course, and it is going to be very entertaining indeed. If not a very long night and a very difficult one for all of these guys, a very entertaining one for us, and we're massively looking forward to it.
With that, it's time to take a look at your starting grid. Some of the top drivers in all of iRacing have made their way out, just 13 taking times. It's Matt Busa, though, who takes the pole time, looking to redeem himself after an up-and-down NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series event. He's on the pole with the 28.518. Agno Phillip will start in second, nearly 8/10 off the pole. One of the top drivers in NIS Fixed Competition all season, and one of the rookies in NASCAR competition, Garrett Main, starts third, with Andre Castro in fourth. Joshua Flygong starts in fifth, with Drew Freenage in sixth. Wesley Parker starts in seventh, with Ali Osman in eighth position. Blake Bottoms and Dylan Reed round out the top 10. Popular streamer Trevor Perry starts in 11th, with Connor Rockwood in 12th with a 29 flat. The last driver to take a time was Octavio Rondoletto. He starts 13th. The rest of the drivers are sorted via iRating. Among those drivers is Casey Kerwin, who will start 14th. Alan Bowes, 15th. Should be worth noting Jesse Atchison is elected to start towards the back of the grid. He'll be slotted rather 16th to 35th. The drivers who move up as a result, Tyler Gary, Malik Ray go 16th, 17th. Daniel Frederick moves up a spot as well as Jose Solis Jr. Joseph Galata will be among your top 20 competitors. Jordan Worf is also elected to start towards the back of the field, another popular streamer across the iRacing platform, with Omar Delaro starting among the top 22 cars. Alistair Topley will also start amongst that top 24 positions. Logan McNally starts behind them, with Jason Maines inside the top 26 overall. J-Bo starts 27th overall. Marcus Vurtsenek starts in 26. Parker Alexander, Tower Dubois, Wyatt Tinsley, and Matt Cucker among your top 32 or so drivers. The rest of the field is Joseph Pisacata, Alan Balacino, Daniel Adam, and James Holzer. Those are the drivers who have made it out to NIS Top Split competition today. One driver has elected to start from the pit road after a crash in qualifying. That is Dylan Reed, who will elect not to take his top 10 starting position. And these drivers are just about set to go. In-sim time is just past 6 p.m. It is September the 5th, 2021 in sim. And the iRacing Darlington 500 is set to go. It's Matt Busa in control of the field for Mode Motorsports. Green flag is out. We're underway from Darlington. And a great start for Matt Busa, already up to second is Garrett Maines off the jump. Agnell Phillip already shuffled to third. The rest of the competitors already sorting themselves single file to complete the first lap. But some line differences, some preferring the wall, others preferring the bottom in 3 and 4 as we complete lap 1.
Yeah, everyone with their head screws on here through lap 1, just in very sensible start indeed, which is what we like to see. Don't get used to this though, it's going to be all double file a little bit later on. We're going to see more battling like this, like we're seeing in the middle of the field. A couple of side-by-side moments, but we've already seen last lap around at turn 2. The dangers are going side-by-side. The lines really do pinch together, the outside and the inside. They're pinched together in a sometimes dangerous way, and we saw cautions caused last night because of it. We probably will tonight as well, because it's a very, very high intensity part of the track, and these guys have really got to keep their head screwed on for these first opening laps especially.
Taking a look at one of the battles that's going on. This is Rondoletto and Ray. That's him on the battle for 14. Just in front of them, Alan Bowes is trying to make some moves on Trevor Perry, who last time by did get into the fence after snapping loose through the entry of turn 3. That's allowing some of the technical alliance mates to make a move on Trevor Perry. That's Ray now to the inside.
I don't want to be picking up a Darlington stripe this early on. I know we glorify it a little bit, but you know, you've got to keep your car straight for this part of the race certainly, and avoid stuff like that as well. It's very close battling in the mid-pack. People clearly who haven't qualified very well. Now a lot of people didn't get a time in there. Clearly wanted to get up the order just a little bit, and yeah, a little bit. Some of them just pushing a little bit hard for this early stage in the race. Everything going smoothly for the moment though.
A great start for these competitors already on lap 5. Tyler Gary among the drivers who are essentially having a busy afternoon, who competed at A-Fixed in preparation for this race. Guess who dominated that A-Fixed? Tyler Gary much of the way, before getting reeled in the closing stages after caution flags by Malik Ray. As Gary, known for having some good consistent speed, putting some pressure on the car in front.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely. Joseph Galotto just got in the wall a little bit on the outside line. Got very close to it, definitely. And Gary looks like he's going to be able to take advantage. But just look here, the inside line, he's actually able to roll the middle of the corner very well there. But the fact that they were staying so equal was actually going to be a problem for Gary very quickly, because you really don't get a very good run onto the back straight if you are on the inside line through turn 2 there. So he did a good job to slide up in front of Galotto, and he's into 16th position.
Near stack up for the battle, going around 18th or 19th, where at least 2 to 3 cars stepped on each other. Jose Solis Jr. was hit from behind by Daniel Frederick, and that checked up the entire back half of the field, 4 side by side for a split second, but it looks like everyone was able to stabilize it. Keep in mind, this track, Ewan, could be very tricky with regards to making passes. It's so difficult to get a pass done cleanly, and it's so easy in turn for drivers to slip up into winner if you don't give or take early.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of give and take going on, and we've already seen a little bit of that, but it's very, very important, as you just mentioned, because it's so hard to pass around here. And I briefly touched on it a moment ago about the exit you get off of turn 2 if you're on the inside line, and we're about to see it here at turn 4. It's a little bit less pronounced, but it's still a factor. You just really don't get a very good run, and so you've got to get down the inside very early on into turn 1 or turn 3 and try and slide up in front of the car in front, like we're just seeing here. With the red and white car we just see on our screens right now, just slide up in front of the car in front, block their line on the outside, and you can kind of budge your way into the train. But if you don't manage that, then you can get freight trained on the outside very easily.
Of note, Trevor Perry, who we mentioned had gone into the wall in the early stage of this race, has elected to park his machine. He is now done for the night. That is coming before the start of lap 10. So already one DNF for this 367 lap full length distance race. But looking towards the front, you see this main pack trying to build up some separation. Busa has the clean air, which could be very crucial. That was a big talking point, Ewan, for the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race, because the deeper you are in the pack with the dirty air, the more tighter it gets and more tougher it is to be able to save the tires.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be very, very tricky to save the tyres at the best of times around here, but especially when you're running in traffic. Matt Busa obviously has got all of the clean track in front of him, so he's loving it right now. But I'm a little bit surprised that Garrett Maines has been so pleased to just ride behind him for the moment. I think he realises that it's so early on in the race that it's not really worth risking it for a crazy lead battle this early on. But yeah, you're right, the tyre wear is going to be a factor around here, although we're not expecting them to come in before the fuel runs dry at about 60 laps in a given stint of this race. But yeah, certainly if you're running up towards the high line here through any of these corners, it will save the tyres, but of course you've got that added level of danger of just nicking the wall a little bit and getting yourself a Darlington stripe, which you could really do without. But you know, if you go too far on the inside and keep the danger down, then you are going to also increase your tyre wear at the same time. So these guys are going to be juggling and balancing many, many different things throughout the day, including those tyres, as you mentioned.
Take a look. This is Bilya, who is running inside the top 5, still in the 4th position. There is a bit of a buffer starting to build up because of some of the battling you may have noticed a little bit. You also have Andre Castro, who's in this grouping, who has been fighting with Andrew Freenosh. And for those who watch RaceSpotTV, recognize that name. He's a competitor who's competing in the NASCAR World Tour Qualifying iRacing Series, but is also somebody, Ewan, who races in RSR competition and is one of its legends, known for his tire saving and fixed sessions. Good start to him as we look towards the battling amongst the mid-pack. A bit of shuffling with these cars losing some touch, and Rondoletto is having a bit of a wild moment or 10 in this one in the Jukos Esports machine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very loose car at the moment, and you really could do without that right now. Anyone with a really loose car is going to be in big trouble tonight, because as we've seen already, the sun is going down. It's going to be in their eyes very soon, and the track is going to continue to get freer as the night goes on. As the track temperature comes down, these guys are just going to be sliding out of control. So if you're already like this when the sun's still out, you're in real trouble.
That's actually an interesting point, because the transition point was a discussion for the eNASCAR race. In regards to that, keep in mind though, this is fixed setup compared to eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series competition's open setup. So this could come down to adjusting the driving style for many of these drivers as the night goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got all these things to play with if you're in the eNASCAR series, but you know, these guys have got basically nothing. They can't do anything about it. So just trying to adapt to what you have around you is kind of the best play here, I guess. It's just about being a bit careful with a free car. The only way you can control a free car without actually making any setup changes is just by going a bit slower and being a bit more careful. I know racing drivers don't like to do that at all, but really it is the only way you can do it. For most of these cars, to be fair, look very planted indeed. They don't look like they're particularly free. It's just Rondoletto we saw a few moments ago. He looked a little bit out of control for a few moments' time. But once you keep those tyres back in check again, he should be okay.
Car you're looking at, by the way, is Wesley Parker. He's in the wall for a second time in consecutive laps. First time was with a grouping of cars right behind who had to check up several times as a result of near contact with each other. And here's the big part too. You get aerodynamic damage like some of these drivers have gotten already. It hurts you for the rest of the race, Ewan, because it can make you tighter as the race goes on. It can also slow you down on the straights.
Yeah, absolutely. You really, that's what I mentioned a little bit earlier on. I mentioned it in the first 10 laps of the race because this is going to be about survival, especially, I would say, until the last 100 laps, if I'm honest. As we see in a move here for P4, Freenage getting down the inside of Filio, who's about to be in a bit of trouble here on the outside line. But yeah, you just want to keep your car in check for this moment in the race. It's not like survival like we talk about at the Daytona 500, for example. But it is survival in a different way, just keeping your car straight, staying in the race, staying up towards the front-ish. But in those final 100 laps, then you can really attack and start pushing the boundaries and maybe just clipping the wall because there's not long to go. It won't matter as much at that point. But yeah, we're seeing here Joshua Filio is in a spot of bother here, and he's into the barriers himself a couple of times in turn 1 and 2. He is getting absolutely freight trained on the inside this time.
And that's one of the dead zone racing machines. If you look towards the left rear of the bumper, and he got a bump draft from one of the Technical Alliance mates in case going down the straightaway. Not what you usually expect at Darlington, and if you're that high up though, like he was, it's so easy to clock the wall in the corner entry. Yeah, and then difficult to get off of, as well as we've just seen, because you kind of clip it once, you're out of control, and then you hitting it again. So that was an unfortunate moment for him. His car's going to be bent a little bit from that one now. Hopefully he's got lucky and it won't have bent the wrong things in the wrong places, if you see what I mean. Hopefully he'll be okay in a straight line and through the corners as well. But he does look a little bit on the tight side, then gasses it up a little bit and a little bit free on the exit as well. So just looking to get into a rhythm really at this point, and struggling to do so quite clearly in the opening laps. That incident, by the way, has now lost him 10 positions overall in the race. He's in 15, 7 seconds behind the leader after being as high as 4 just moments ago. Keep in mind, some of the biggest movers of the race is a +9 by Omar Diallo, who is also among those dead racing competitors in the field for today. You also have several +6s from Kerwin and Bose, +7 Malik Race so far up on the pylon. So a few of the drivers have been able to slice and dice their way through, especially when it helps when you have battles such as these two, Castro and Freenage, who have been going back and forth bit by bit for what seems to be a good 10 laps or so.
Yeah, they've been battling nicely, keeping things in check, but they have been losing time to the front three, who are starting to run away just a little bit. We're seeing a bit of a pack forming, really, from fourth on back, and it could be a bit of a problem in terms of tyre wear, but yeah, for these guys at the moment, it's just about staying up front, as I mentioned earlier on, and keeping yourself out of trouble. For the most part, these guys have been able to do that, and Castro and Freenage have been able to even battle with each other while keeping out of trouble as well.
And you'll see a lot of give and take in these early stages. Seeing that in case on screen, that's Blake Bottoms, who was elected to let on by this trio of Technical Alliance mates. Now keep in mind, while they are on separate NASCAR teams, they do have a history of working with one another behind the scenes. So these are 3 drivers from the NASCAR Cup iRacing Series 2, Ewan, who like to have the challenge of working their way through the pack. And Kerwin, Bose, and Ray, they seem to be trying to line it up where all of them can pass the cars bit by bit with each other.
Yeah, and I think that's great practice, really, because let's be honest, this is not going to be their #1 target of the year to win this race here tonight. However, it's great practice for them. Well, it's a fixed setup race, so it's pretty good practice, but not in terms of the pace. I mean, in the NASCAR series, these guys are so unbelievably fast that they're almost as quick as each other. You know, that means that, you know, there's not much to gain there. But in terms of racecraft, you can really learn that, and you can really get a lot better at that in a series like this. So starting towards the back like Kerwin and Ray have done here, a great idea for them. Maybe they would have been hoping to be a little bit further back, but because not many people got a lap in, they're quite far forwards, really. But yeah, it's fantastic practice for them, and they're doing a great job at it for now.
They are indeed staying lined up astern. It's Ali Osman who is the next car up to try and battle with. Blake Ray with a little bit of a squirrely moment coming off the corner, avoiding grazing the wall. And Kerwin now trying to pry his way underneath for 6th. Osman, known for racing hard, though, is not going to give this up easily. Unless there is a run right underneath him. And that's not the case so far. Bit of a checkup, in fact, in the corner entry.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just struggling to get through for now, but just working on him, really. You've got to set up the passes around here. It's not as easy as other tracks to actually pass here, so you've got to set it up for lap after lap and then strike at the right moment, or indeed just wait for a bit of a mistake. But yeah, for now, we're just in that kind of setting up phase, and then once the moment comes, and once Kerwin has decided the moment is right to strike, then he will absolutely do that. But for the moment, just feeling out his opponent just a little bit and not throwing any punches just yet.
Keep in mind, still the first run of this entire race for these cars to think about. And we were talking about this before the race. There are plenty of tire sets, 13 sets total, are available for drivers through NIS competition this week. That's 12 in the pits. Well, hearing over the radio that at least one driver may have to come down and pit. That is Connor Rockwood, who was among the top qualifiers that's been shuffled to as far back as the 30s. He has now had to come and pit after an incident for his car. A tough break for the top 10 qualifier in NIS competition. The give and take meanwhile getting close. Osman nearly scraping the wall. Kerwin trying to build up the run. Can't get there yet.
Now this is a problem now because Bose is going to get a pretty good run and get to his inside right now, but he may experience the same problem that Kerwin did a few moments ago. Just doesn't go quite full commitment there, Bose. He just decided to stay behind for the moment. He will kind of alleviate that problem a little bit, but yeah, Kerwin's got to be a little bit careful. It's all well and good doing those kind of moves when it's just a two-car fight, but you know, there's 7 of them at the moment, and four guys could actually throw on him if he makes a move in the wrong place.
And here's the thing too, they have not picked up the car of the group. As now, it's the matter of how things break out amongst these cars. Keep in mind, Freenach lost 4 tenths in one lap alone. That allowed him to be reeled in. But the pack, remember, Andrew was one of those drivers who fought hard for position.
Clearly, he's just maybe gone too bit hard on his tyres early on, but he's struggling in these opening laps. The front continues to get away, but Kerwin's finally got through.
Yep, Upman is giving up the go. Give a lot of space. Back to the fallen off nearly 2 seconds. It bent 30.
If you put some new tyres after the pit lane, they feel like all in the world, but really, it's going to because make too hard on the tyres in the opening part of the race here, because he's really far back Castro and the rest of the top 4 right now.
With that, let's follow along with the sight and sounds around Darlington Raceway with a RaceSpot fan immersion. RaceSpotTV for the Darlington 500. Been listening on to a Race Spot fan immersion here at Darlington Raceway for the iRacing 2021 Darlington 500. Justin Prince alongside Ewan O'Leary with Tower Maxon in the producer's seat in what has turned into an intriguing race because the strategy gates have opened up just now. Several drivers have elected to go for a 40-lap stint compared to going for the full 60 to 70 laps on their tanks, hence why you may notice some fluctuation on the board. Among the drivers taking a strategy call, Matt Busa, Rondaletto, Cucker, Jabo, Butanek, McGow, and Ali are among some of the drivers who've elected to try something different and go a little bit shorter on the stints, essentially with the lighter chance of fuel compared to going fully in length on the tires. That is now cyclated the driver for ESE, Elliott Sauer Esports, Garrett Maines, to the race lead. Keep in mind, Agnell Phillip has done a fairly spectacular job of keeping him within distance of 1.4 seconds throughout this window. The downside is that's now going to be broken up with some dirty air from Jabo for the second place car. It's also going to become the risk of, for some of these competitors, they will have to deal with dirty air in traffic with the fresher tires. That could cost drivers in turn time on the circuit. See the close call, for example, with the race leader, Garrett Maines. That situation lost Maines 0.2 of a second as a result of having to lift off the gas in that sequence. As well, Joseph Galata also trying to cut his way through these respective competitors. Among the drivers who are trying to stretch it on this strategy outside your top two are Castro, Kerwin, Bose, Ray, Diallo, Freenosh, Osmond, Gary, Frederick, Sells Jr., Tinsley, Ilya, and Jordan Worf, who is already up 22 positions. It should be worth noting, driving a throwback to Kenny Schrader in the number 14 overall car via iRating. Keep in mind, some of these competitors are dealing with significant traffic and damages as well. This is Jabo you're following along with at the moment. Botello had some damage from the early going of the race to the front nose of his machine. Well-known streamer has lost a lot of time as a result of said damage. He is among one of the last cars on his strategy. Some of the groupings that are getting together at the moment and picking up pace are Kerwin, who is currently running, in some cases, about a 10th quicker on average to the race leader, Garrett Maines, third on back. Blake Ray has lost touch to his friends in Kerwin and Bose. He is currently nearly 2 seconds back in 6th. You also have the small groupings building up for 8th, 10th, and 13th. Here is that grouping among the battle for 3rd. Kerwin starting to check out with the clean air. Castro starting to lose touch. Lost 3/10 last time by. Keep in mind, Alan Bose coming off a decent night in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Had a very quiet evening with some good passes, decent strategy for that number 67 McLaren Shadow machine. Right now, Bose keeping it nice and patient with the dirty air of Castro in front. Among the drivers who are taking the different strategy calls of going 40 laps, Matt Busa has been the only driver who has been able to unlap himself, and he has an advantage on his strategy to the nearest car by upwards of 18 seconds on the circuit. Just past lap 50 for those just tuning in here on RaceSpotTV, as things are getting very intriguing for some of these competitors on how they can slice things out with the traffic. That's Wesley Parker now coming underneath. Down the back straightaway, it's worth noting one of the big pylon shuffles you just seen. The 21 just got taken 3 wide by several different cars on several different strategies. It has been a rough night for Joshua so far after being as high as the top 4 after qualifying, hitting the wall after getting a bump draft down the front straightaway from Casey Kerwin. dealing with significant right front fender damage. At the moment, that's now seen drop to a race low 16th for him. You can tell just struggling a little bit with the rotation as a result of that damage as some of the air battles as Frederick and Gary try to go at it for 10th position on the racetrack. How things break down here. And Ewan, your thoughts here is for this race, we have two different thought processes here. Try and go as long as you can on the tires, or try and go shorter on the tires and maybe take less fuel. Ewan. And we'll get back to that discussion point in a second on that note then, as we continue to follow along with the fight at the moment. You can see just how quickly this set traffic is catching up to some of these drivers. A lot of give and take being given over the radio. Near contact with the wall for Frederick, trying to let him by the pay-to-win machine of Cucker. It's worth noting that the radio has been very active for some of these drivers. They have been communicating vocally and quickly throughout this race, trying to keep an eye on where each other are, but also the amount of near close calls there have been around the racetrack, Ewan. These drivers have been nearly knocking the wall down a ton in turn 3.
Yeah, difficult to understand, really, how that's happening or why, because, you know, you'd think this early on in the race, people would just be taking things a little bit easy, get settling in, and then go from there, but it's really not been like that. It's been quite high intensity. Very good for us, though, I have to say. It's been very entertaining, but just not particularly good if you're one of those drivers who've maybe got a little bit too hard and gone into the wall just a little bit. But as I mentioned, really entertaining for us, and I'm very glad as well that somebody's thrown the strategy dice, and the kind of cards are all over the place. It's very interesting indeed.
That's Wyatt Tinsley, who was elected to go a little bit earlier than 60, where his scheduled stop got up to 12th position before the pit stops. Here's that grouping of Ray and company we've also been keeping an eye on, with Diallo close behind. That is a lap car, and Logan McNally, who is trying to pass on by on the bottom, is able to do so. And keep in mind, as a result of this race, we have two different thought processes here, as I was trying to say. We have the drivers trying to stretch it long on the tires and hoping that the less amount of pit stops, possibly if it goes green, benefit them. And you have some who are trying to split it up shorter distance and potentially take less fuel to have a faster car.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting, but not quite sure which one's going to play out, really, over the distance of this race. We're nearly 60 laps in now. We're expecting the fuel to be running out for some of those guys up front very shortly. Yeah, it's going to be good. I think the guys who are pitting a little bit short could be in a bit of trouble, because if they catch a yellow at the wrong point, then they could be trapped a lap down, and that could haunt them throughout the day. It just depends how long this race runs green, really.
Oh, trouble!
As we got
Malik
a bit of a problem.
Gray gets into the inside wall. He flips one car over. Caution is out for the first time, and this scrambles the field as they crash hard into 3.
Goodness, this is exactly what I was talking about, where I mentioned the guys who were pitting early could get trapped a lap down, could get trapped down the field. This is exactly what I was fearing for them, an early caution, not what they needed.
The only driver on the early pit stop strategy who actually unlapped themselves was Matt Busa. It's Malik Gray, who is very furious on the radio, who gets into the back of Rockwood, who slid around. Ray tried to move him, Rockwood into the wall, and bye-bye they go, taking the yellow with them.
Innocent bystander in that one, but yeah, I think there's and rightly so, a lot of people are going to be very unhappy with how that's gone, to be honest. It's so early on in the race, there's no need to be bump drafting down the back straight, I wouldn't have said. And yeah, the consequences absolutely disastrous for Malik Ray and others as well, caught up in that incident.
And the amount of frustration is building up on the radio from that incident, as the rest of the race leaders now coming in for their respective service here, including Matt Busa, who loses a ton of track position as a result of the caution. Race off the pit road. Garrett Maines wins it. Ballacino and Atchison did not pit the first time around. As this gets interesting on how this now plays out with everyone re-bunched up. Your thoughts, Ewan, as this really scrambles the field with a lot of drivers now pinned a lap down?
Yeah, absolutely. The drivers pinned a lap down are in for a very long evening now, I think, because it's hard to get your lap back when the strategy is going to be so defined among those who are up front. So I really do fear for them. But if some of the guys have got the pace, then they might be able to do it. But this certainly scrambles the field. This is exactly what we needed early on. It has the potential sometimes, this race, to be very single file until the last 100 laps. But this ensures that it's absolutely not going to be like that, because some of these guys are going to have to fight their way through very aggressively indeed.
We'll have to see how this all goes now, as several drivers forced to take the wave on upwards, in some of these cases, near 20 lap-old tires.
That means they're going to be in big trouble on the restart as well when we get into that in a few moments' time. So yeah, they've been put on the back foot by this caution, there's no doubt about that. And a very avoidable caution as well, I have to say. We saw it a little bit earlier on. And some good cars taken out in that. Malik Ray was having a decent time of things and so on and so on. So yeah, disappointing, but hopefully they'll be able to at least get back in the race and get up there for a decent result.
I will say the amount of frustration on the radio needs to be taken care of for some of these competitors, again, for how things have played out here. A lot of unhappy drivers, let's put it that way, throughout this entire field. But to reset your top 10, it's Maines, Phillip, Kerwin, Castro, Bose, Freenosh, Osman, Frederick, Gary, Jordan Worth up 26 spots, rounds out the top 10. Damage repairs for Tyler Dubosh is in 11th. Ballacino in 12th. Matt Busa took a long pit stop of 37 seconds at the top of the caution flag, is in 13th. Rondoletto in 14th position, 20 seconds repairs under the caution. So now how do you think this could fare out, knowing all the strategies are equalized, but you have so many drivers who need a quick yelling at?
Yeah, we do, and they've got a big situation of possibly being trapped in this situation for a very long time. If we have a 200 lap green flag run coming up, then they're going to be trapped in this strategic position that they really don't want to be in. So yeah, we've got to see how the next 10 laps or so pan out. Is it going to go back to lots of give and take, or is it going to be full-on racing?
iRacing pace car is off after a temper flare. Caution number 1, Garrett Maines gets the green and big tire spin from Phillip as that stacks up the top. Several cars nearly crashes, the rest of the field darts to the bottom. That could have been huge, and the amount of drivers who might have nearly got a black flag could be instrumental as a result of that checkup.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't pass before the line. You can't get out of line before the the start-finish line, really. So they may be in a bit of trouble for that because of the tyre spinning in the outside row there, and it could get a lot of guys in trouble. But it could also lead to quite a lot of people having damage here, actually. You don't expect that very normally, obviously. So yeah, there could be a few bent fenders and panels going on out there at the moment.
So the main drivers who took advantage of all that is Kerwin up to 2nd, Bose jumped up to 4th with that restart, Gary up to 6th. Several drivers on the top line now dealing with crinkles of damage. So let's put it this way. You have a caution coming in the middle of the first pit stop strategy window. You have a lot of drivers who may be upset, and it's still building up, I will say, over the radio. How do you try and get that focus up, knowing you still got 301 laps to go?
Yeah, there's a long way to go. I think this is where a really good spotter and a really good crew chief is going to come into play if you've got both of those available to you. Someone just to say, we've got a long way to go. Just calm down a little bit. and we'll be okay as long as we just give and take at this stage and keep the panels straight. We'll be all right. But on your own, it's very easy to get worked up. Especially for those who have been caught out by this strategic, well, not strategic yellow, I wouldn't call it that, but by this yellow in the middle of the pit stop cycle, there really could be, some tempers fraying. And if you're, outside of the top 20 at this point, then it really can get to you if you haven't got that person just to calm you down a little bit and put things into perspective for you almost.
So, among things to note, Matt Booth is on the charge. He is already back up to 10th, right on the back bumper of Jordan Worth. Also, Daniel Frederick is the site of a hornet's nest and a half where James Holzer, Alan Ballacino, and Jose Solis Jr. among some of the drivers from Nexus Esports who are trying to fight right behind them. And this is becoming very busy as a result. How about near contact and then you're squished into the fence for the battle for 14th?
So I mentioned the inside line and the outside just converge on each other on the exit of these corners, and it gets very, very tight indeed. We're seeing it here once again. Are we going to see a similar situation? It's going to be a bit of a squeeze, but on the inside line, getting through finally. So it's very, very exciting racing up front at the moment. But it's getting a little bit too close for comfort maybe at some points.
As a result of all that checking up, bit of side-by-side with Solis Jr. right behind, able to clear on by. You see the battle towards the front on the left side, battle in the mid-pack on the right side of your screen. Busa is now up to 8th position. And it shouldn't be surprised to see him very quick, because when we talked to him a little bit last week before the NASCAR race, he said he had put in a ton of time, especially in qualifying, should be worth saying, to prepare for the NASCAR race. That preparation is definitely coming to play, where he's now up to 7th position after just making the move on Freenosh.
Yeah, it definitely is coming into play because, first of all, as well, he's already done a half-distance race around here only yesterday. I know that wasn't a fixed race, but it's still going to be very good practice for him. And so, he's going to be in very good stead for the rest of this one. And it's always hard to bet against him anyway. A very big contender for this one.
So now trying to set up Osman for the battle for the 6th position meanwhile. Busa now with the run, trying to move himself back up towards the front. The next grouping, though, is about 1 second up the track. Move Busa back inside the top 6. Meanwhile, Solis Jr. able to make the pass down the back straightaway on Holzer as they continue to play very dangerously back here. You also have Jesse Atchison and Joseph Pizzicata who are mixed in.
This is what I said earlier on, that you want to stay up front really and survive for these opening laps. It's to avoid groups like this really, because especially if you're at the back, if something goes wrong up front, then there's not a lot you can do to avoid. It's quite a wide circuit, especially at the turns 3 and 4. You can get down to the bottom and avoid stuff, but you'd rather not because you are putting yourselves into the hands of not your own hands, let's put it that way. So, this is why the guys up front are having a great time and why these guys are ruining the fact that they're not up front right now.
And keep in mind, for Atchison's case, he was one of the drivers who elected to start last in the field. And for those who may wonder, how do you exactly do that? It's as simple as leaving the session before qualifying. That automatically puts you behind the drivers sorted by iRating. Some drivers just seem to like that challenge, and especially when it comes to NIS. In some cases, it keeps them safe. In other cases, they just like to charge to the pack.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, these guys are almost as fast as each other. There's very small differences between them in terms of pace, but in terms of racecraft, there is, I think, some especially have got a lot to learn and a lot to improve on. Not because they're causing incidents all the time, but because it's just a good habit to get in.
Bad news for fans of Matt Cucker or anyone from Pay to Win. His car off the track, technical issues. Have now seen Cucker pull off the track before the 100 lap mark. He was among the top 20 before that situation. Meanwhile, Busa has reeled in the top 5 group after closing in by 0.6 last time by. He is not saving. And those tires definitely could be a question mark towards the second half of this run for Busa. Remember, he was among the drivers who went for the 40-lapper run, the first stint around. And this was a talking point among the lead cars for the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race, where in some cases they tried to build a cushion from the lead car to the second place car to get cleaner air. Haven't seen those same strategies yet for this particular race, with everyone wanting to try and keep each other within 3-4 tenths among this lead pack. Boots has got one of the bigger challenges he's had to have throughout this race so far to try and get around Gary, Phillip, Bose, Kerwin, and Maines to retake the lead after having a dominant start to this event. One driver slow just up the road from him. It's Parker Alexander. Alexander, that's why you see the puffs of smoke, had an incident in turns 1 and 2. He is now slow at the bottom of the racetrack. No caution. We stay green. He'll be passed by the leaders right here. Unfortunate for Alexander, who is running an Adam Petty throwback for his respective side of things. For Matt Busa, he takes the Kevin Harvick throwback up inside the top 5. So over the past 10 laps has been upwards of a 10.5 quicker than Maines, than Kerwin, than Bose, and Phillip. So he is a man on a mission for Mode Motorsports. They have already ditched the next grouping, led by Freenosh by almost 3 seconds. A massive deficit for the number 3 overall driver to try and close back up on, as Busa may be starting to hit that tire cliffing after pushing so hard to get to the pack. For those tuning in, 21 laps into this stint here on RaceSpotTV for the Darlington 500. This is NIS fixed top split competition, as these drivers look to try and come away with a full distance race victory. Taking a look at one of the battle packs starting to build up. Castro, Rondoletto, Worth, Dubois among this pack. And Worth, as mentioned, has the throwback to one of Kenny Schrader's cars when he ran for the BAM Racing Dodge. That car up 25 positions. Worth, known for his streaming contributions across iRacing, also does various meme-style broadcasts with various different series as well as official competition. One of the most popular influences on the iRacing service. Don't be surprised to see him try and stretch out the runs, though. He is known for going long on his strategies to get himself a chance for a caution flag. You'll watch as Rondoletto tries to build up the pass on Castro can. Keep in mind, Castro's back end has a significant amount of damage. That's among the spoiler. And keep in mind, when you get spoiler damage, it can also affect your overall speed. You see that damage there. Bit of a tap for Rondoletto to his right front fender for good measure as well to add more aero damage to that car. That damage really hurting Castro when it comes to the speed to keep up with the cars in front. Rondoletto slight jumps his way up the ninth. Rondoletto trying to recover from an earlier set of contacts to the wall and shufflings where he got massively loose on corner exit. And one of the main things to keep in note as well is for some of these drivers, the right rear tire is needing to be saved to hold on to grip around this track. It may sound simple, that that was a concern in NASCAR competition, to not be too loose, with the track known for having minimal grip, especially on iRacing such as Darlington. Some of the drivers who were the quickest were the ones who kept the tire balance even. Worf, meanwhile, slides his way up to 10th. Matt Busa has also fallen off a cliff now, as he has elected to duck down to the pit lane. Will he elect to keep on racing is the question. He has already made it to nearly a quarter of the way through. Keep an eye on that, as Busa has been known for these earlier stops in some races. That means Kerwin, Bose, and Phillip are the only other drivers in the lead group with Garrett Maines. Taking a look at the grouping for Ballacino and company, this is around 15th on back. A lot of people saying dude over the radio among this pack after some near close calls in this fight. Right now this pack running 31.3s compared to the leaders who are running 30.7s. Holtzer dealing with some fender damage. You see Ballacino with some rear end damage. Pichicata with some right side damage. McAlley is also in this grouping on a different lap cycle. Matt Busa has indeed elected to complete his said service, by the way, and stay on the racetrack. So it appears to be a scheduled window stop for Matt Busa. That is now seems cycle to 26. Under DNFs early on, it's now increased to Alexander, Cucker, Ray, Diallo, Perry, who are out of the race so far here at Darlington Raceway. Here comes some of the side-by-side, a bit of give and take being shown. Toppling now dives his way to the inside, though. He's on a different strategy as well. 3 laps down. Bit of a checkup now really hurts Pichicotti's car. He loses several seconds as a result of Busa and company having to dive on by this entire pack. Bit of give and take being given by some of the cars just in front of McNally as well. That will allow him to regain some of the ground just lost from all the various strategies. This race has turned out to be intriguing, Ewan, to say the very least, when it comes to the roll of the dices, but also just the decisions of saying, you know what, let's pit a little bit earlier, like lap 30 early in a run.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great news for us, really. It really is. And that early caution as well. All the ingredients have mixed perfectly, and hopefully they transpire later on into what is a fantastic race. Hopefully not just early on here, but right late on as well, towards the very end of the race. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, it's been a very enjoyable race so far. As we saw last night, it can get very single file and very, one way in the opening laps of a Darlington race, but as I mentioned, if we have the right ingredients, then it can be very, very entertaining.
Attrition have noted that group you just seen did take the wall. That's why he lost several positions back over to Jordan Worth and his pack. He is now up to 7th. So he is moving through and quickly. Just behind him, Andrew Freenosh has elected to peel off after significant nose damage to that machine. The multiple-time RSR champion had been dealing with aero damage. That's why Freenosh has now just towed his car directly to his pit box as Worf tries to run behind Ali Osman. Osman, too, is dealing with a bit of damage himself here with Busa and company trying to cut on by with the traffic. And this is something you need to be aware of. If you don't keep an eye on the lap traffic, it can cause disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always important at any track, really, to get through all the lap traffic without issue, and it's part of winning one of these races, really, you've got to get your way through it. It's not like, as you mentioned last night, that there's not very much lap traffic to deal with, but around here it is a real problem, and you have to deal with it. So it's one of the things that makes up many of the things that you have to do to obviously win one of these races. And if you don't have everything, then you're not going to win, especially at Darlington.
Absolutely. 2 more DNFs to add to an extending list of drivers before lap 100, by the way. Galata, Freenach are now out of the race. They DNF'd at near identical times. Keep in mind, if you want to keep an eye on your favorite teams and drivers for today's LIS fixed event, in this special event, go to RaceSpotTV/timing to keep an eye on where your driver is here at Darlington Raceway. That's once again RaceSpotTV/timing to keep an eye on where fellow competitors are on the circuit. And keep in mind, the traffic's starting to get heavy, not just with the drivers on faster tires, but the drivers with damaged and older tires for the race leaders. Maines, Kerwin, Bose just reeled in a gaggle of cars.
Yeah, there's only 18 cars on the lead lap here, with 32 still in the race. So that, if you do the maths, that is a fair amount for this early stage as well. You wouldn't have expected it, but there is a lot to be contending with out there, and it can close some of these battles like we're seeing on our screens right now. It really can make or break battles very, very quickly. And careful, and yeah, make sure you get through without issue, really, and try not to lose too much time.
You can see Worf trying to get himself into that rhythm, 39 laps into their respective runs. One disappointing thing, by the way, for the lead pack, you may have noticed with the intervals, Alan Bose got held up dramatically by not one but 2 different lap cars. Blake Bottoms, who has lost his front hood for the A51 machine, and he also had to check it for Wesley Parker. He has still not been able to pass by Parker, in fact, and has just about lost 1 second to Casey Kerwin.
Yeah, just about the battle for the lead very much on right now. Kerwin completing his run to the front of the field after starting in the pack, but it's not too much of a worry right now. We've seen it in traffic. Kerwin been able to make his way through very nicely. Maines got caught up a little bit, so and it always is a difficulty as the leading car. The car getting lapped doesn't really want to let go because they want to stay on the lead lap, of course. So it can be a real problem for the leader, and that's a little bit of what we've just seen right there.
Maines continuing with the clean air. Worth noting that Wesley Parker nearly made contact with Alan Bose after Bose passed by the lap traffic. He is reporting he's got handling issues as a result of right side fender damage on the 67. So his car dealing with troubles the rest of the way. So it may come down in the early going to these two as the favorites. Kerwin and Maines, with Matt Busa trying to be the dark horse.
Yeah, if we can call him that at this point, he's very good, but obviously out of position a little bit compared to what we'd expect. And some of the other contenders like Freenach, for example, have been halted by some of the problems. But here's another illustration of the tyres and how different they are in terms of when you stick new ones on, it can really fly you up the order once again. And that's exactly what we've just seen right there. It's going to be very, very interesting to see who blinks first, really, in this round of stops. We've had 40 laps since most of these guys come in, but I don't think anybody's going to take the risk again. If you pit early and get a caution like we had last time, then we've seen the disastrous effects that it can have with the likes of Matt Busa getting caught up on the wrong end of that. So, yeah, it's something you really have to be careful on, and that's the main reason why I expect most of them to stick it out the whole 60 laps this time.
I wouldn't be surprised to see drivers extend it too, because, again, keep in mind, all but one driver did not unlap themselves. As a result of early cautions, one driver just spun out on the pit lane entry. Jose Solis Jr. has missed the commitment cone, trying to go for an early pit stop in the 9 machine. So one of the Nexus Esports machines is in trouble. He had significant right side damage. He has now rolled his way to the pit lane.
Absolute disaster, and we've spoke earlier about how difficult this pit lane is to get onto. We've
trouble back straightaway. An air car has just had an incident down the back straightaway. Leaders will pass by a bunch of smoke. No caution, though. James Holzer quickly backed out of the race, near contact with some of the lap traffic with Connor Lockwood as well, as he tried to go to the pits and nearly just came up into the traffic. So we've had 3 different incidents in the past 15 seconds for those keeping track.
Yes. Yeah, we're losing count, almost running out of fingers to count on here. Here's James Holzer's problem, just gets into the outside wall on his own and then into the wall again and spins around, but not the whole way until he hits the barriers again. So that's the end of his day, unfortunately. And yeah, and into the barriers just behind race leader Mains there, right in front of Casey Kerwin as well, which could have been a real problem. And looking at that car, it's not the first time it's been in the fence either.
Funnily enough, Casey Kerwin is over the in-chat radio cheering on Jabo to push hard. He is apologizing for being a bad influence in a result of telling him to push hard. This is what happens when you have plenty of streaming friends on the racetrack,
yes.
As I believe Jabo has disappeared.
Looks like it. A bit unfortunate.
Well, he's gone straight to the pit lane, is what he's done, and I think he's done for the night as well.
Yeah, looks like it. It's a real shame. We've seen quite a lot of guys actually out of the race early. I think there's 5 now, 6, maybe more. Yeah, it does tend to happen, especially in these top split races. They race with each other so often, these guys, that you can build up quite an alliance and a friendship with quite a lot of them, and that's what we've seen just there, just a little bit. But it's all good fun in the end of the day.
And keep in mind, the atmosphere of top split competition has changed a lot, especially since the end of 2019, start of 2020, as Alan Bowes is now also parking his machine due to damage, as that McLaren Shadow machine appears to be done for the night. But to get to the point, the drivers who compete, as well as the way talent is assessed, has changed a ton. Garrett Mains is still one of those competitors who is among NASCAR competition, who frequents NIS competition a lot, has won multiple NIS championships in fixed and open competition, keep in mind, with this raw speed. But for some, it's either you go to NIS or you go to RTP. It's changed a lot over the years compared to where it was a necessary thing to do both, I will say.
Yeah, it has changed a lot down the years in the way that you get to the top level of NASCAR competition on iRacing. But yeah, it's and there's some of these guys as well that have been around for a very long time as well, let's not forget, right from the very start. So we've got some veterans and then some younger ones as well on the grids, but they're all kind of converging here at the moment. And yeah, it's a fantastic time to be on iRacing as a NASCAR driver at the moment. It's never been a better time, really.
Keep in mind, NIS at one point was a part of the qualifications to get to what is now the Coke Series. That's changed a lot with RTP and how the team structures now play out. A lot of organizations still put heavy weight on assessing talent by racing in NIS, whether it's fixed for your ability to adapt to different setups, or whether it's open with knowing if you've got the knowledge to build the race cars, to be able to have fast speed in these types of races. Pit stops expected within the next 20 laps across the entire field. Keeping on the battle for 12th position, Matt Busa has already reeled in these cars. That's how quick he's running these cars down on this alt strategy.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job at the moment. Going to get to the inside of the 21 right now and get up into P12. Good job from him on that one. A lap car in front as well that he can try and get to the inside. I've got to be a little bit careful here, but does indeed do a nice job of getting his way through traffic. So yeah, he's driving exceptionally well. A little bit of bad luck, it has to be said, with that caution earlier on. We've seen how good he was at the start of this race. He decided to make a bit of a strategy call, and from then on it's been purely fantastic driving. Again, he's got somebody in the fence off 4.
And a little bit of a snaky moment for this grouping of cars indeed. It's Connor Rockwood who is now in front Some of the lead cars near contact as Rockwood dives to the apron. And now Rockwood nearly pushes up into Jordan Wirf's car. Rockwood is having an adventure tonight.
Yes, he is indeed. 4 laps down already, I'm afraid, and doesn't look like he's getting back towards the leaders anytime soon either. I bet there's going to be a few frustrated with him at the moment. So yeah, there we are. But trying to stay out of the way of people, I guess, is just difficult to do on occasion. And yeah, coming a little bit of a moving chicane for some of them on that occasion, but he's back going again now.
Everyone, the Moon Sport machines that are racing tonight. Of course, that's in relation to Travis Brown and Moonhead. They should help develop that esports program. Gary doing a phenomenal job, also does a lot of various league work in developing various organizations across the platform. He has been one of the decent movers of this race, up 12 spots now. Osman has quietly held on to a top 5 spot just about majority of the way, while Jordan Wirf is up 30 spots in this pack. So at this point, how do you try and play this out knowing you've now got yourself these little packs, and once you get the caution flags forming up, how do you try and break out of these packs if you want to try and get a shot at, say, moving up to the next grouping?
I'm not entirely. I guess getting to the front and seeing if you have the pace or not is a good idea. But if I was them at the moment, I'd be sticking with it at least until the next round of pit stops, as Balacino gets through on Castro into 1 and 2, slides up in front, textbook move for 9th position. But yeah, to be honest, I'd be staying where I am for the moment, because there's only a few laps to go until these guys will be pitting again, and there's no point really going through and risking a car in a move to try and get through when pit stops are so close. It's worth staying where you are for the moment until that has cycled itself out, and then just try and move to the front of the group and just putting a little bit of pace in. Try and run a few fast laps, or what you think are fast laps. Just run as fast as you can for a few, and just see where that gets you. If that means that you're not really pulling away from those guys behind and not making any inroads in front, then just fall in behind, save a bit of fuel, save your tyres and whatever. But you know, if you do have that little bit of pace, then you know, you've got to get to the front to use it.
Exactly, and that give and take can in turn be a lengthy process, and at Darlington it can take you several laps to set up passes. This could be an opportunity for Wirf. Near contact as Parker had to pass on by. Jordan Wirf elects instead to nearly give him a bump draft with a bit of a block down the backstretch.
Seen that go wrong tonight already, but thankfully they kept out of contact with each other. And yeah, we've just seen the danger of lap traffic. It's not only going forwards and passing them, but getting passed by them on newer tyres can be as much as a danger, if not more of a danger, than maybe passing them, because you know, it just disadvantages the car, especially on the outside if they cut across your nose. So another thing that these guys have to be wary of, and we're just suffering these onboards now. The sun's starting to set, really getting in their eyes on the entry to 3 as well.
Was about to say that visibility is going to be very critical, because for some, they may not be able to cover up their eyes to be able to block that sunset, depending on their setup. Doing.
Yeah, absolutely, it's really in the eyes going in there. So you just got to be careful at this point. But you've also got to remember, it's not going to be like that the whole time. You won't be thinking, oh God, this is terrible. How am I going to go another 240 laps with this? But it will go behind the circuit, behind the horizon before long, and you know, you can just deal with it for a few laps. It's not going to be there for long, so you just got to put it to the back of the mind for the moment.
Here's a look on board Jordan Wirf. He continues to ride his way up inside the top 6 now after an additional pit stop that involved Justin Attrition. Here's that perspective, and look how bright it is up until you get to the buildings that cover up that sunshine halfway down the backstretch.
Yeah, just imagine what it would be like if that building wasn't there. It would be horrendous, really. So, yeah, it really does get in your eyes, and it disrupts your rhythm going into your turning point, 4th, turn 3. And it's something that these guys will have to contend with for the moment. It's an absolute classic Darlington 500 thing, really, isn't it? It's a staple of every year, that the sun going behind the circuit, behind the horizon, as these guys race on into the night. So yeah, they've just got to remember the night is coming up very shortly, and that sun will be dipping down soon as well.
Pace difference has become massive, keep in mind, as Worf has elected to let by Daniel Frederick because he has been mowing down this group to the tune of being quicker than the race leaders. I think Worf has recognized the 8 is among the fastest cars now on the racetrack at the end of this run.
Yeah, I think so. It's really managing his tyres well. If you're fast at this end of the stint, then you really have been being very kind to the tyres, which is certainly going to stand you in good stead for the end of this race. But Gary doesn't look like he's been treating his tyres too well, in all honesty. Really starting to stack up this group as Ali Osman is looking to make a move at some point. Not found the right opportunity yet, though.
Getting very tight amongst this pack once again. We'll see how Daniel Frederick tries to handle Osman. The race leader, though, has ducked on in after 65 laps. Frederick will follow that race leader. Garrett Maines is in for his scheduled stop, as well as Frederick in the 8 machine. So the pit stop window was open for much of the field as near contact in the fight between Gary and Osman.
Gliding up into Osman on the outside there, just getting into Gary there just a little bit, and got into a little bit of trouble. Could have got into a little bit of trouble, but didn't in the end. Surely now with these early pit stops, especially from the leader, it's going to bring everyone else on down pit lane. You can't get undercut by everybody here. You can't let the leader go in early, get on those new tyres and stretch out even more of a lead. You've got to get in. You've got to follow him in my opinion. But Casey Kerwin deciding that he wants to play the fuel game a little bit, try and stay out as long as possible, and make himself a little bit more flexible later on.
Kerwin has indicated he plans to come in this time by as well, so another race leader is ducking down. We'll see how this battle fares out with the drivers planning to come in. Osman from the fight does elect to come on in as Jordan Worf drives on by. So these drivers now, again, are inside their window. Agno Phillip has now cycled to the race lead for the time being. And keep in mind, Ewan, in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race, the key example, the battle between Mitchell DeYoung and Keegan Leahy. Those two were 1-2 much of the race. Then there was the strategy call of electing to go a little bit further than some of the other drivers. They lost 10 seconds by staying out 4 extra laps.
Yeah, it's a really big tyre drop-off around here, and you will notice it when some of these new tyre guys start flying by the cars that we're following on with, like Verf we got on our screen right now. So, yeah, that's what I say. You really do want to be into the pit lane, you cover off the leader and cover off everybody else who's been in, because Osman's making that pit stop right now. All of the others, Gary also. For Worf, and Worf's now following them, but yeah, you can't afford to stay out for long because it's truly terrible, this tyre wear, and they fall off very, very quickly indeed.
Here's a look at Garrett Maines, who has already, as we mentioned, completed his service. He's expected to be the net leader. How big was that difference of staying out? Well, it's about 7-8 seconds separating the two. And Matt Busa, who's on a very different strategy than everybody else, after pitting after only 3 laps, after the caution flag split things up early, he now leads on 44 lapable tires this time. So I'm curious on how Busa tries to break this down now, based on how this appears, in terms of how he expects the math to go for this race.
Yeah, is he going to pit a little bit early to try and get on strategy with everybody else, or is he going to try and stay off-piece, off-kilter with everybody else to maybe catch a caution at this point in the race? Because if he does, or maybe in 10 laps time or so, then he's going to be in a very good place. And he's going to pull everyone else down on pit lane. He's going to trap a couple of people a lap down. He's going to force them to go around. So,
and he's in the wall.
Oh God, that's a big slide and into the barriers. Could do without that.
That's not going to help the strategy. His right side is now crumpled in. Absolutely huge, and that may hurt this play for the long haul for Matt Busa as traffic now passes on by.
There's no doubt that's going to hurt him. He's got to keep the car straight. All these guys have got to. But especially if you're off strategy, you've really got to keep your car straight and keep your car in good nick, because if he does catch that caution late on at this stage and he's going to a late race restart in the lead, you need that raw car pace on a very short run, and if you got bent panels everywhere, then you're not going to have very much raw car pace.
Keep this in mind again. We talked about the aerodynamics with the right front fender. You crumple in the right rear quarter panel as well. It can absolutely hurt your ability to save the tires, because the more crumpled it goes, the more overall time it costs you, the more rear grip it costs you as it takes the air off the rear tire. Busa's gap for the race lead is 7 seconds, coming in for lap 135 of 367 for the Darlington 500 here on RaceSpotTV. It's been an exciting one so far. It's Busa, Maines, Rondoletto, Kerwin, and Phillip, your top 5 from the place they call Too Tough to Tame. These drivers continue to breathe.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to iRacing's virtual Darlington Raceway for RaceSpotTV's coverage of the 2021 edition of the iRacing Darlington 500. I'm Justin Prince, alongside the booth is Ewan O'Leary with Tyler Maxson in the producer's seat, and this race is now approaching 2/3 or so to go. This has been an intriguing one with the various strategies that have come into play, but now it's the matter of how those strategies play out. Garrett Maines has a lead of about 5 seconds or so over Casey Kerwin. The reason Maines is back in the race lead, Matt Busa has elected to park his machine for the night. That leaves just Maines and Kerwin as the only eNASCAR competitors left standing after 141 completed laps, coming up to 142 or so in this event. Ewan, it's been an intriguing one so far. A lot of drivers dealing with damage. A lot of drivers have been cycling in and out on various lap totals. At the moment, though, there are just 8 drivers. Yes, 8 on the lead lap.
Yeah, it's been a very attritional race so far, and as you mentioned, 8 cars on the lead lap is a bit of a surprise. However, you can definitely tell that the 2 eNASCAR drivers are here because they're 15 seconds out front of the field right now. Which is quite impressive, really, but not unexpected when you think about it. The battles further behind are certainly very entertaining, but it looks like it's going to be between Mains and Kerwin for this actual race win. Let's see, though. There's still a long way to go, and even these guys one lap down can very much come through the field and actually win this one. They've just got to hang in there for the moment and try and get back to the front again if they can. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting one for the moment. Certainly split apart massively early on in this race.
For those just tuning in, here are the 8 drivers on the lead lap. Mains and Kerwin from the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series representing L8 Sauer Esports and XSET respectively. Tyler Gary, who is a part of Moonsport. Agno Philip in the A51 machine. Ali Osman, Daniel Frederick, Jordan Worth, Tyler Dubois. Everybody else is currently 31 seconds or more behind Garrett Mains on racetrack. And that includes some surprising names who are known for being quick in NIS competition in fixed races, such as Jesse Atchison. You can also throw into the mix a couple of the other competitors, such as Castro and his speed before he picked up damage. Rondaletto has been on alternate strategies all night as well. He's known, for those who watch the PRL Cup Series, for being one of its top competitors after being in the championship mix all the way into the finale for that respective series. So now it's the matter of trying to get yourself a clean race car all the way around this circuit, Ewan, because we've talked about attrition, we've talked about aerodynamic damage. That's going to keep on weighing up more and more as the rubber continues to build down, the track temperatures change, and the feel of the track changes.
Yeah, absolutely. The sun will be going down, and as we mentioned earlier on, the cars will be getting a little bit more free than they were earlier on in the race, but it's a fixed race, so there's not a lot you can really do about it. You've just got to kind of grin and bear it. And that's a big send from Philip, just a swipe on the wall, but no too much damage, I wouldn't have said, made to that car. You can see it's a little bit out of shape, but it's nothing too drastic. One thing we haven't mentioned with this damage really is the fact that normally in one of these races, if your car's, let's say, a little bit tight or a little bit free after the damage, you can actually fix the car up a little bit, not to fix the damage, let's say, but to kind of aid the car in dealing with that damage. But in a fixed race, there's absolutely nothing you can do about a car that's damaged in a certain way. So that just adds a level of danger to it, and kind of surprises me once again why there's been so much attrition in this one, because they know that there's nothing they can do about the damage once they get it. So why on earth are they running this close to the wall? Why on earth are they running this hard into these corners? It baffles me really, with still over 200 laps to go.
Here's the thing, Ewan. The fastest line around here is that top line.
Yes.
You have to be daring and willing to flirt by getting close to that wall, especially by apex, if you want the fastest way around. The bottom in 3 and 4 does have some grip on it, Ewan, but for the most part, it's essentially a double apex around the top.
Yeah, you are right. You do need to run as close as possible to the wall to go as fast as possible, but I still don't know why they have to run quite that close at this stage, running this hard into these corners, and a couple of incidents that maybe could have been avoided. You see, running there just ever so slightly a lane lower than the outside line might have been beneficial on a couple of occasions for some of these guys, but they've decided to go all out for this race, and we can't complain about that. We don't want a field of cautious drivers as spectators, certainly, so it's good that they've gone for this one. It's just a little bit baffling how so many are already out of the race, and we've only got 8 cars on the lead lap at this point as well. So it happens from time to time, especially at Darlington, but oh goodness me, you see the dangers of this circuit is really coming to the fore here tonight.
Near contact, do you see in that grouping with Atchison, as Jesse Atchison, we've just got squished up into the wall.
Could have ended in disaster for all 4 of them there, but getting through quite nicely. And now a bit of clean space. It looks like Agno Phillips just a little bit quicker than Gary up in front, so when he's got that little bit of free track space, maybe he can make a bit of a move here. And speaking of making a move, Jordan Verth down the inside of Ali Osman, not quite able to do it though, I don't think, unless he can roll the bottom of the track well through 3 and 4, and he does actually do very well there to get in front.
Part dirty air, part poor run from Osman, a good clear from Jordan Worth. He is on slightly fresher tires by 2 laps compared to these drivers. So Jordan Worth up to a race high 5th position.
Yeah, you might think that new tyres are not that much of a difference in terms of 2 laps, but just look at Casey Kerwin right now. The gap was nearly 6 seconds when he came out of the pit lane, and now it's below 3 for the first time in quite a while. So don't discount the amount of tyre wear that these guys have got to deal with, and don't discount even 2 laps of a tyre advantage. It can really play into your favour.
Caution flag is out once more on the racetrack. And it's the second caution of the race. We'll see where the caution is. There was a car, I believe, trying to enter the pit lane, the 25. Marcus Furtanek had been sideways on the apron. And apparently, because he spun across inside the pit retaining wall, it was enough to trigger the caution flag for the 25.
Let's have a look here. It's a difficult pit lane to get onto, and there you can see it spins right the way around and hits the wall, actually, a little bit embarrassingly. But yeah, I wouldn't have expected that kind of thing to bring out the caution, actually, but there we are. It has, and it sets up a very interesting conundrum for those who are not on the lead lap. I think everybody who is, the 8 cars that are on the lead lap, will be pitting here, but what do you do if you're a lap down? Is it too early to risk this next green flag run being less than 30 laps? Because if not, then you could set yourself even further back down the field, getting unlucky again. So let's wait and see.
Andre Castro in the lucky dog position with the caution flag. Maines and Kerwin are so far ahead. They are nearly halfway down the pit lane by the time the rest of the field starts to roll on down. Among the drivers, keep in mind, who are on different strategies, who are pinned a lap down, Ronaueto is as much as 6 to 10 laps difference from some of the drivers on tire cycles at the moment. But Maines has been very dominant ever since he's taken the race lead in this one, and as talked about, he's known for doing this in NIS Fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a very good driver indeed. So we can't discount him at all for this race win, of course, and he's certainly taking control of this right now, getting out front and surviving these opening laps. And just look at how clean that car is at the moment as well. He doesn't look like he's even been within a brush of the wall at the moment. He's perfectly considered drive right now, but still over half of the race to go. And late race cautions, has he got a good short run car for the end of this one? That's something we haven't really seen so far, because so far the runs have been quite long, but it looks like the majority of the lap cars as well coming down onto pit lane. They're not deciding to take the wave around, get back on the lead lap, and they're not going to roll the dice this early, it looks like.
Only drivers who are laps down, staying out potentially for the wave, are Topley, McCanally, Reed. We also have Rockwood with the sniffing damage. Everyone else elected to come on down. Castro coming in for his lucky dog service. Phillip took 45 seconds with damage repairs in the pit lane. Now, we talked a little bit about NIS Fixed and the fact Maines is a champion in NIS Fixed competition. It shouldn't be surprising then that the top 2 are top 2 on the racetrack in this year's standings. Maines has 6,253 total points in the season with 25 victories. All but 5 of his starts inside the top 5 finishing order. Kerwin, nearly 700 points behind, has 18 NIS victories. The next nearest in Division 1 standings, 3 victories from Osman, who has got 5,000 total, third in the standings. Maines and Kerwin have been the kings of NIS Fixed this year.
Yeah, and we're seeing that here tonight, really. We saw before the caution came out there, they were a good 15 seconds in front of the field, and the fact they're both NASCAR drivers as well is kind of being writ large for us at the moment. But yeah, nothing unexpected about these opening laps. It's been a little bit more attritional than we were expecting, but the main drivers are coming to the fore. We saw Matt Booster up here as well. He wasn't as particularly surprised to see out here running laps in the lead. So yeah, in terms of those who are actually up front right now and those who are leading this race, absolutely no surprise at all. But it's about the rest of them really at this point. Who can get in amongst it? Who can get in amongst these two? Who can kind of disrupt the party up front? Because at the moment, Maines is having it all his own way.
Want to go for the restart. 9 cars on the lead lap coming up here. Maines, Kerwin, Gary, Worf, your top 4. Osman's in 5th. Frederick, who is 4th in NAS Division 1 standings in fixed competition, 6th. Dubois 7th. Philip in 8th. Castro had significant damage repairs as the lucky dog. He is in 9th. Will have to start behind a lot of competitors who also took the wave around. We'll have to see how this plays out. I'm curious on how Worf now plays with these race leaders. He's been fairly quick with how he's moved up 32 spots tonight. Green flag waves, off and away. Maines with a good start. Kerwin already single file. Gary already to the top. As one car nearly goes to the apron, a bit of tire spin possibly in the pack. And that was trying to dart around Octavio Rondoletto for that. There was tire spin for the Juco's esports machine. They nearly stacked up again coming off of turn 2. Tinsley got the worst of that checkup.
Yeah, big stack up among those who are 1 lap down already, and a lot of people going right down to the wall on the right-hand side to just avoid these incidents. Up front, though, nice and single file here once again. Everybody just keeping things nice and calm. But it's not calm if you're not on the lead lap at the moment. They do want to get amongst it and get back towards the front.
Trying to get back into a rhythm here with 207 to go, this time by at the stripe. Kerwin is lifting a little bit more down the straightaways compared to Maines, trying to get some of that clean air pocket with the top 4 all staying station. In fact, the top 6 after the restart. Keep in mind that you also have some lap cars mixed in right behind all this. Jason Maines is the first car 1 lap down for Elliott Sauer Esports. He's right now just a few car lengths behind that battle now side by side for 7th.
Yeah, there it is, just out behind. So it's interesting to see, as you mentioned. I'm very excited to see what Worth can do here, actually, because you mentioned it earlier. Just before that caution, he was very quick indeed, but doesn't seem to be getting off as to quite a good start as he was earlier on in the stint. So let's wait and see with regards to him. But for the moment, the top 8 certainly staying single file. Also, Castro, how can he get through the field, being in 9th position after getting that lucky dog last time around?
Once again, that's Philip, who took damage repair under the caution flag period, trying to make the move. It seems Osman really struggling side by side coming off of turn 4. A lot of give and take this run. Now drops himself to the last car in the lead lap. Just about to 8th position. Castro is still a good 4 seconds back behind the line as a result of his lucky dog situation. So now that things have calmed down compared to the fisticuffs that came out during the first caution, this is what we were expecting. A lot of give and take. A lot of drivers thinking big picture.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to. We're not even halfway through this race yet, and we've seen the disastrous things that can happen if you don't give and take at this point. So you just got to be careful. And we're mentioning that phrase so many times tonight, but it's so important earlier on. Just survive the first 250 laps, and then you can really go after it in the final 2 stints, maybe. But yeah, it's some of these guys clearly want to get on with it very quickly indeed. And want to be leading almost every moment. So yeah, there's been some give and take, but there's also been a lot of take from a lot of people, especially if you didn't qualify that well and you're still stuck behind and still stuck down the order.
Welcome to iRacing. I mean, it can happen a lot, especially the 1.5 miles, I will say, with that package. We have the low downforce, high downforce package, keep in mind, for tonight. For those watching NAS for the first time, which means a lot more slipping and sliding, a lot more speed when it comes to the straight lines. It drives much differently compared to when it was high downforce for a couple seasons at Darlington.
I think it's much better to have low downforce here, really. So especially on quite a lot of the 1.5 miles, actually. I think it can get a little bit too easy. Well, I don't say easy, because it's not easy, but it can get a little bit too much in the throttle. You almost never get out sometimes on these high downforce packages, but with the tyre wear and the low downforce, slipping and sliding all the way through these corners for these guys, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's a lot more entertaining than having a high downforce package here.
so tricky, though, to get the passes done with this package, I will say, as well. We'll have to see how these competitors adjust again with this dirty air. And when we mean dirty air, it's the turbulence essentially from the cars in front that will make it tighter when you ride in that draft, as we touched upon earlier on in this race. That makes it so difficult in turn to build up the run, and it just takes a lot of perfection in turn to time it up to where you force a mistake to be able to then try and get the clean air. And that's why in some cases you see these drivers trying the bottom line to get the pass done, not just to get side by side, but in some cases to try and get some fresh air to the nose.
Yeah, exactly, and you might see some people going to the bottom when there's actually no opportunity to pass at all for that exact reason. You might be thinking, well, they're way too far back, what are they even attempting that for? But it's actually just to get a bit of air on the nose and maybe set up that pass, as we spoke about earlier. You've got to set these passes up over many, many laps, and so by doing that, you might have to just search around a little bit, search for the right line, and try and get a bit of air on your nose and try and take a bit of air off of their car, and then you can maybe go for it. But yeah, it does take a fair few laps for you to actually be able to affect that. So, and of course, it's more difficult in a train like this with a car ready to capitalise on any mistake that you make.
Long run pace coming from the NASCAR drivers is now starting to come into play, because they are now chipping away from third arm back. They are very good when it comes to saving the tires, and when you burn up the tires, it usually shows around lap 20 to 25. We're starting to see the signs of it already 15 laps into the run. See Daniel Frederick in the middle of your screen. That is Aiden Phillip, who's been trying to build up a run for a few laps. He just can't get fully alongside, it seems, to Frederick.
Steve, he's very close, as you mentioned. He's basically pushing the car in front around the oval at the moment, but there's no way through as the two leaders just get away. We've seen this before, that a lot of guys can have short run pace, and as a driver it's fairly easy, especially at this level, to be consistent for 10 laps or so, 10-15 laps. But once you're getting into 20, 30, 50 kind of laps, then it starts to get difficult, and that's when the NASCAR drivers really start to come into their own and really show their worth as to why they're in the top category of NASCAR racing on iRacing.
Right now, the separation from first to second, 4 tenths. Second to third already growing up to nearly 5 tenths. This time by the stripe. Now coming up to 194 laps to go inside, 200 to go here in this event. And now let's put it simply, how do you try and break this on down? Because to put it simply, most of the field has only used 3 sets of tires. In turn, how do you try and break this the rest of the way, knowing you have so many spare sets potentially as a result of such long runs for much of this field?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of spare sets here late on, but I still think that it's best to run your 60 laps for the moment. Just run as far as you can go, and then you might catch a caution and it might be all great, but even if you don't, then you're still saving those tyres and you're still just getting towards the end further and further. The thing is, if you start back timing and start imagining, if the race runs till green till the end, then I'll do this and I'll pit a bit early, because if it were to, then you could probably do maybe 52, 53 lap stints till the end and do about 4 of them, and then you'd be a little bit quicker than everybody else. But I think it's too early to be back timing the race at this point. I think you've just got to run as far as you can for this point, and then try and do something a little bit later on. If we get a caution in 100 laps time or so, then you can start thinking about that kind of thing. But if I was in one of these cars right now, I'd be last, but I would be running as far as I can at this point. Just do your race at this point. There's no need to worry about anyone else.
Exactly. It's so critical to race the track rather than the people around you in some of these events. Seeing that amongst this green flag run at the moment. Calmest it's been for our competitors so far in this event. Of note, Connor Rockwood nearly just spun out down the back straightaway. No caution, we stay green. He is the last car running on track. It should be worth noting Rockwood has had an up and down night. Give the 31 credit, he is still chugging along and trying to build up potential for iRating gains and for potential of a top 20 since we are down to 22 cars running.
Yes, whittled down very, very quickly indeed. A little bit surprising, but you know, it does happen on occasion, and we're seeing it here this time. So yeah, there we are. It's a bit of a shame, but you know, it does happen as I say. So yeah, we'll just see how many more guys actually go out of the race by the end, and you know, Rockwood could be well up inside the top 20 by that point. It's always good to stay in the race, I think, because you can always get some laps back with a lot of cautions late on, and you can try and get yourself back up a few laps, and you can gain some positions that way as well. So it's never over until it's over. It's always good to complete these races, especially the longer ones.
Very curious on how this could all play about. Keep in mind, Kerwin is now starting to drop further and further, slowly but surely back from Garrett Maines. He gains a little bit of time back one lap, gets back some of the dirty air, drops back a little bit more, loses ground, specifically off turn 4 this time by losing another couple 100s or so. It seems Kerwin is also clutching coasting though, Ewan.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. So, bit of a fuel game going on here. We saw this maybe a little bit in the last stint. We weren't on board with him, and we weren't watching him very much to really tell here, but he might have been just doing this a little bit on the last stint as well, because if you remember, he went a little bit longer than Maines on the last green flag stop, so maybe that is a result of the clutching and coasting that he's been doing throughout this race. It could be a product of that, but even if he is doing that, he's still really keeping pace with Maines quite well here, and doing well in that respect. But let's not forget, this we were on board a little bit earlier, this circuit, you can save that little bit of fuel fairly easily, because you coast quite a long way through that first half of these corners anyway.
Trying to do some quick math when it comes to this mark to try and make sure of this here. But here's something to chew upon a little bit. 270 lap stints is about 140 laps. Then you add on the fact that we are approximately 45 away from that mark to get to a 70 and 70. If the math is right, I think Kerwin may have just picked up on this. He's only saving on one end of the speedway. He might be trying to say, if this goes green, there might be a concern later on.
Yeah, there definitely could be. My only concern is he going to be able to make it to that 140 to go? Because 140 to go is going to be, what, 2.27? Can he make it there? Little, maybe. I think they pitted just before lap 160, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it is definitely possible this time, but it's whether the 270s are possible or not for me. I think we saw last night it might well be, but I think it's a little bit of a risk. It certainly seems to be one that he's willing to take, though.
And for those looking to calculate the math on their own, when this calculation started, there were 25 laps in the stint. We are now at halfway, now in this race in particular, too, for the Darlington 500. If you are able to go 45 laps from that 25 mark, which will be nearly 40 laps from this point forward, you can make it to the 70 and 70 at the end, but you have to make it 70 in the first place. In our words, big brain moments here at halfway at Darlington Raceway.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of calculators steaming backstage. You can be sure of that one. There's a lot of maths going on, and it's just about what's the best way to tackle this race, really. Staying out long does cover yourself in terms of these cautions. It can do, but it also can, if a caution at the wrong moment, can put yourself a little bit down the order. It's just a case of, do you want to take a risk to win this race, or do you want to try and win it on raw pace? Of all people, to be fair, I didn't think Casey Cohen was going to be the one to actually try an alternate strategy. I thought it was going to be one of the others to try something, realising that maybe they're not going to do this on raw pace, and so they might try and strategise their way into victory lane, but it doesn't look like he's really bothered about that. Cohen, even though he does have the pace, I believe, to win this race ahead of Maines in terms of raw pace, deciding that he wants to take things into his own hands and get the strategic book out.
Well, keep in mind, the quickest strategy in a lot of cases these days when it comes to oval racing on the iRacing service is try and take the least amount of pit stops. In some circumstances, tracks like Darlington, it could be a toss-up at times. But if you have to take a splash and dash at the end of the race, or try and split up the final run, there's no guarantee you come around the whole track to catch back up, even with the fall-off.
Yeah. The fall-off's big around here, but is it big enough, and are you quick enough to make up that kind of margin? I mean, we saw it last night with Bobby Zelensky. Got up towards the front with a long run on the field, got a late race caution, and managed to keep himself up the front and actually win that race. So are we going to see a similar situation here? Because even if Kerwin doesn't, if this race doesn't go to the end, you know, if there's a caution with 20 to go or something, Kerwin's probably going to be in the lead at that point because of his strategy. So can he keep that lead? Does he just, is this just a big ploy to get track position for the final 20 laps? That's a big bank on not only there being maybe no cautions in this race, which is kind of, he's got some of his chips in that basket, but he's also got, he's kind of banking on that caution in the last 20 laps or so, because he might be able to stay up front in that situation as well. He's kind of covering more than one base here.
And even with the saving, here is the big part of all this. He is still running a tenth of a second quicker than the rest of the field, outside of Mains.
Yeah.
So he has that raw pace quick enough to where he can still be clutch and coasting in one corner entry and still outrunning the rest of the pack.
Yeah, and that's why I'm confused why he's playing these strategic games here. You know, he's got the raw pace. Why doesn't he try and chase down Mains a little bit later on? Just preserve his stuff for the moment, but why doesn't he chase down Mains at the end of this race and try and get him in raw pace? I don't know. If I had that raw pace, I'd certainly be trying to use it at this point. I was more expecting it from guys who are a little bit further down to be trying a bit of a fuel game, as Frederick has just pulled to the inside for no apparent reason out of the top 8 and drops out of it very quickly indeed.
Jordan Worth losing touch, meanwhile, to Tyler Gary this run after riding right in his coattails. Much of the run, one car you seen just went nearly to the inside wall down the straightaway. That was the 8th place car, Daniel Frederick, who got a little bit loose coming off the corner.
Oh.
Bit contact in the heart of the pack, meanwhile, with the lap cars. That's Ballacino, who nearly turned somebody.
Now this race between the lap cars is very entertaining because they're not pulling any punches. Certainly they're absolutely going for it. It's just a case of trying to get back on the lead lap for these guys, but it's very, very difficult to do because it doesn't look like they've quite got the pace here today. They've not got that much of a deficit to the likes of Osman and Dubois and Frederick up front, but you know, when you're a lap down, it's super hard to get that lap back, especially if guys like Mains and Kerwin are actually the leaders here. So they're almost fighting for 10th, almost resigned to fighting for the lucky dog throughout the rest of the race.
Here's the important thing to note, though. The lucky dog fight is just up the road. You see that ESE logoed machine in Jason Mains? That is your lucky dog currently. And while the pace has been fluctuating a little bit, he has been near identical lap times at times to compare to Ballacino, and has that dirty air now from Daniel Frederick in his machine that is starting to fall off pace-wise, upwards of 8/10 compared to the rest of the pack. This could be what Ballacino needs, and then in turn a caution flag to get himself back in the lead lap as a bit of a loose moment for Mains.
Yeah, absolutely. This is often the fiercest fight in the front. It's an absolute procession up front because they're saving their tyres, saving fuel, keeping things nice and sensible. But this is their race right here. If there's a caution in the next few laps, then Jason D. Mains' race just turns on its head. It really does. So that's why they're fighting so hard for it. And Ballacino now is going to take that away from him into 3.
Mains gives him the spot, and now move Ballacino into the lucky dog position. We've continued to mention Kerwin and his saving of fuel on the entry to turn 1. He has been trying to close up the ground with Blake Bottoms, now giving dirty air to the overall race leader in Garrett Mains. It has been wild with the amount of saving that's been going on in that grouping as well. You've seen Dubois and Phillip now swapping positions up on the pylon.
Yeah, they are. Dubois looks like he was trying to, I can only presume he was trying to get to the inside and got in front briefly, but then Phillip got a good run off the exit here and he's managed to stay in front. I'm just interested to see what Mains is doing in terms of his field. Is he clutching in and going into these corners? We don't believe so for the moment, so we have got a split strategy race at the end, which is absolutely fantastic for us, but we're still 30 laps away from that magic 140 to go, where you can do those 270s, but that has a big asterisk next to it. Let's not forget, can you do 70 laps on fuel? We do not know.
And keep in mind as well, there were the fluctuations of several laps from some of the drivers' data compared to official competition, even to the NASCAR race. So a lot of the data depends as well on that weather. Dubois now dives his way to the inside of Phillip. 27 car, given a little bit of space with Phillip burping the throttle, moved Dubois up to a race-high 5th position.
Very
Weather
quiet.
conditions.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Very quiet drive from him today, hasn't it? But he's been stealthing his way inside the top 5. Very, very impressive drive.
Was about to say, the weather conditions right now are 77 degrees Fahrenheit, air temp, 84 degrees Fahrenheit, fairly hotter earlier on. Those temperatures you have to expect are going to continue to dip in. The colder it gets you in, the more grip you get.
Yeah, it feels amazing really when you're going out here. You feel like you're getting better as a driver really, but it's just the increased grip really that is available to these guys, because yeah, if it's too warm out there, then obviously it's just horrible to drive. It can do on occasion here at Darlington. It can get very, very, very horrible on occasion. So yeah, it's certainly going to be feeling great to these guys at the moment. But it's less about the tyres at this stage and more about the fuel, especially up front. We've spoken all day about keeping your tyres in check and so on, but our mindset and these guys' mindset will have changed completely going into the latter portion of this race. It's absolutely fascinating. And so, you know, the sun coming down and the tyre grip and the increased grip is almost becoming a secondary thought to them, and that's almost ludicrous to us watching this. You know, how is that a second thought to them? Because they're getting more grip and they've obviously got to account for that with the tyres, but the fuel is so important at the moment. Getting to the end on the strategy that you're doing is so important that it really is a secondary thought to them right now.
Phillip, meanwhile, starting to drop even more positions, move him back to 7th. That is Osman, who has been able to retake 6th position with that move. Remember, Phillip has that fair bit of aero damage. Osman has a decently clean car outside. That front nose damage. Behind them, bit of battling going on amongst some of the lap cars, as that 21, remember, was a top 5 car early. He's regained some ground after falling back to as far as the near 20s. Looking to retake 11th position with some air cars closing on in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting interesting for the lucky dog position right now as Castro gets in front of Frederick as well. You can see for 8th position, Frederick's really been dropping down the order in recent times, but yeah, it's fantastic, the battle for 10th right now, to see who's going to be able to get lucky dog. Ballagino's obviously going to want a caution at the moment, and it really would shake things up, I've got to say, but it doesn't look like we're going to for the moment, as Folio gets through on mains, and now he's into 11th, really starting to come to the fore and driving quite well right now.
Ilya has made the move for 11th position just up the road of note. Mains continuing to drop further and further back on the pylon, and what's not been a good run at all. Remains nearly 50 laps in on this fuel stint. How aggressive has the fuel saving gotten in the Casey Kerwin camp, by the way? It's nearly 3 seconds, the race lead, as you see on the pylon, just about. That's how hard he's saving, to the point where he's blipping the clutch on entry of 3, clutching all the way through halfway to the corner.
Yeah, it's getting quite drastic now. It's just a case of, is he going to lose too much time doing this? How much is he going to save by clutching in and saving this fuel? And is it it's this time that he's losing more than what Mains is going to gain, because let's not forget as well, the new tyres towards the end are going to be brilliant for Mains, because Kerwin's going to pit with about 70 laps to go. You'd expect Mains to be pitting with, oh, I don't know, maybe 50, 55 laps to go if it runs green all the way to the end. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of a difference there, and he's going to be running down Kerwin, of course, not saving fuel at all to our knowledge.
On Dotsman, keep in mind on your screen, trying to reel in 5th position. And the window's starting to open up a touch bit for some of these strategic moves, so we expect drivers again to peel down in 20 laps. If they want to be able to make it to the end, that's the critical point. And here is how tight that reasoning is. We're 52 laps into the stints for a majority of the field. 160 to go at the stripe.
Yeah, and 80 laps each way is not going to happen, so you've got to go further, and that's what Kerwin is trying to do, but he's lost over 4 seconds now, continues to lose a lot of time, and Gary's got through now, so Kerwin's clearly had...
Oh, and that's something just happened with Kerwin. Something just happened with Kerwin. I think he hit a lap car. Casey Kerwin, who had been saving fuel, ran into the back of Topley, who is the 21st place car, as Topley tried to clear on by. Tempers now flaring on the radio as Kerwin is now in the pit lane.
That is such a shame, because he was really exciting this race for us, and fascinating to see which strategy was going to work out between those two, but oh, that is a real shame. Let's have a look what happened to Casey Kerwin. You can see Topley going through there and getting loose in front of him, and nowhere for Casey Kerwin to go.
Kerwin's car destroyed. He is doing burnouts in the pit lane. That is the amount of frustration that is in the Kerwin camp. Casey Kerwin may be done with that as a result, and Garrett Mains, as a result, is now leading by 6 seconds over Tyler Gary.
He's really making this difficult for everybody else because they can't see anymore because of the smoke, but there we are. Jordan Verth as well into the pit lane from the top 5. So now it begins really the pit stop cycle. Nobody getting to anywhere near the lap 140 marker at this point. Can any of these guys in the top 8 actually manage this or not?
Worf and Atchison pit this time by, keep in mind. So this race has now taken an intriguing layer. This is NIS to everybody, and what can happen in these types of races. But now it's the tough part of getting to those fuel marks. And it looks like at the very least a couple of the drivers, like Worth as mentioned, are not expecting to be able to make it on the end either way, and are expecting one more pit stop to bank on the roll of the dice strategy-wise to try and get in front. Now it's the matter of how drivers like Gary roll the dice. Do you think, Ewan?
I think so, yeah, but if you've not been doing this since the start of the stint, then there's no way you're going to be able to get to 140 to go. You've got to be going out for this one straight away from the start of the stint right until the very end when you come down pit lane. So I don't see what Gary can do here in terms of the strategy, unless that thing is making more stops here maybe and getting those fresh tyres on and trying to win the race that way. But as you've already mentioned, not always very beneficial. It can be at Darlington on occasion. You can maybe get up the order by pitting a couple more times over a race than your rivals, but it doesn't happen very often. I seem to remember a Richmond race maybe last year where pitting quite a lot of times in the real world worked out quite well, and it's always very entertaining to see the split strategy. Somebody maybe going for a few more stops than everybody else, but I can't see that working out given the pace we've seen from Mains today. I think he can hold them off even if they do attempt that.
Put this in perspective. Mains in clean air is 2/10 quicker than Tyler Gary at the moment. Gary has been able to close some of that traffic gap up when said traffic comes into play. just how big that attrition comes into play and some of that traffic jam noteworthy moments also come into play. Taking a look at Osman once again, he is still riding behind Dubosh. He has just not been able to close up that gap. Compare that to some of the others who are trying to cut their way through on fresh tires. Jordan Worth, living dangerously, surrounded by two different cars. He tries to build up the run on the high side, now dives to the inside of one of the dead zone machines. Give Jordan Worth some clean space.
Yeah, absolutely. He's starting to make up some ground. We saw him coming into the pit lane with 160 laps to go. So a couple of, a trio of 53 lap stints, and he should be okay. So he's kind of pitting a little bit early, hoping for a bit of an undercut on this one. I think he'll be in the top three comfortably by the time everybody pits. Might even be challenging for the race lead, but he's not going to stay there because his tyres will be wearing at the same rate as everybody else's. He's going to have taken just the edge off of the before everybody else has even come in the pit lane.
Among those drivers again who pit, Worth is a lap ahead of Attrition, and he is in line for a three-stopper to the end. The rest of the field is trying the two-stop. All that strategy is going to be very critical for how this finishing order runs out. And it's not a surprise to see Worth roll the dice on this. He's done this several times in the past, whether it's stretching long in RTP, trying this, hoping that the fuel stints are not going to be close enough. We'll find out, though, who can make it to a 70 and 70 towards the end in 9 laps time or so for these drivers.
Not far away from knowing. Yeah, we're really not that far away, as I believe Mains is coming in.
Mains has come in.
So there's no way he can make 2 more stops from here, or the 70 and 70. There's no way he can do that, because that's nearly, that's 75 lap stint. Surely this is reaching into the realms of impossible, even for Garrett Mains at the moment. So it looks like we're seeing a big split in the field here. We've got to wait a little bit of time here. Castro also comes in. We've got to wait a little bit longer to find out what the rest of them do, but for the moment, Mains is going to be stopping twice after this.
And now the attention goes to Gary, Dubosh, Osman, Philip, and Frederick, who are trying to continue this run on. Castro has also elected to come on in. Jason Mains as well. Mains off and away, a 15-second or so pit stop. Nice and smooth for the ESE machine as the rest of the race leaders pass on by.
Worth got through. Yeah, Worth got through. So
yes,
that undercut's been massive, and Mains has been dropped back. I think he's just a car length behind at the moment, but more than that. He's got a few cars between him and Mains, but that's an excellent undercut from Worth. And he's got himself into what will be the net race lead when he comes out, when everyone pits,
Castro now is having a lengthy pit stop service, so it appears Castro may be taking damage repair and losing several laps as a result of the call. Keep in mind, though, Worth, 1 second of fall off already for his number 14. So that fall off is significant.
Yeah, but even if he's making more pit stops than Mains, which I don't believe he is, but even if he is at this point, then holding him back for even a couple of laps, keeping Mains' pace down just a little bit, is going to help him if he wants to try and win this race.
2 more official DNFs. Kerwin, we mentioned, had pulled off the racetrack after his incident. He has now given up the position. Tinsley has also parked his machine. Mains is nearly there for the net race lead. Gary has ducked down to the pit lane this time. He made it only 68 laps. Worth gives the position to Mains.
I didn't want to get in the way there. Didn't want to hold him back, even though it would be helpful to him. Very respectful to Mains there, and just let him through as he sets the fastest lap, actually. Does the number 1 car. So there you go. Through he goes, and in will be the lead of the race when all of this shakes out. Gary and Dubosh pitting 72 laps each way for them to get to the end. Possibly a stretch too far, but Osman and Philip are really starting to get into the realms of maybe being able to do this.
It could be close. Osman has closed in a lot of ground. I think Osman is trying to save a lot of fuel and be careful on the throttle compared to what Phillip has done. Here's a look of Osman right now. This is lap 70 of the stint right here. And he's letting this car roll a fair bit on the throttle. Phillip cannot make it to 140 laps to go. He ducked in.
Let's not forget, though, there's some caution laps at the start of this stint, so let's not get too giddy about the laps that they're completing right now. There are a couple of caution laps involved. However, nevertheless, very impressive from Osman here. At 71 and a 70 is needed if he pits this time around, although it looks like he might be able to carry on again, and he does.
Very critical. Some drivers with caution flags in the NASCAR competition could make as far as 72, but again, that was with caution laps. He'll be having that mark this time by around the speedway. So it's Osman as the only driver who is risking this call. He is only leading by 17 seconds. He's coming in this time.
Yeah, ducking down very early indeed. Maines is going to be leading by a long way here, but let's not forget, he's experiencing some of that drop-off already. Garrett Maines will be experiencing some of that drop-off, so Osman actually might be a little bit quicker out of the gate here, and then it obviously will be in the lead a little bit earlier on. This next stint is so crucial for Osman here. Can he keep pace, but also keep as much fuel in that car as possible?
So again, it's Maines, Worf, Gary, Dubois, Phillip, and Osman, who were the top 6 right in that lead lap. It may go down to 5 by the time Osman has done his service. Castro has also completed his repairs. He is 11th position as a result. So this is going to be intriguing on how this all plays out, especially with this race now coming down to the 2 stop from Osman and the 3 for everyone else.
Well, is it free for everybody else? Who else can make it on fuel here? Can Phillip maybe do it? Frederick, who is going to be able to do this on 2 more stops from that caution? And who is going to be taking 3 here? We think Maines, well, Worth is definitely going to be making 3 stops. There's no doubt about that. Maines probably will be. Well, most of the others probably will be as well, but guys like Dubois and Phillip and Osman, really on the fence about them. I'm not entirely sure. Osman, we think maybe can, but there's still, we can't underestimate how much fuel saving has to go here. And it's one thing being able to fuel save, and it's another to be going quickly. You've got to be able to do both at the same time here, and that is way easier said than done.
With that, let's go to Race Spot Fan Immersion. 137 to go at that time by the stripe. You're watching RaceSpotTV for coverage of the 2021 edition of the iRacing Darlington 500. This has been a RaceSpotTV fan immersion with Ali Osman, who is running in the 6th position among only 6 cars on the lead lap. Justin Prince, Ewan O'Leary with you with Tyler Maxson in the producer seat here on RaceSpotTV for the iRacing 2021 edition of the Darlington 500. Taking a look at a battle for position on screen. This is Castro trying to hold on to 9th. Not able to do so. That is Pichicata, who is able to make the move. On much fresher tires, same can be said for Ballacino, as near contact amongst these drivers.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit edgy there. Castro was really backed into a corner, actually, because Piscotto was really pushing Castro right up towards the wall there, but they all managed to get out away with it, and now it looks like Ballacino might be able to get through, although they're staying side by side for now.
Castro definitely not making things easy for the Nexus driver. Will this get dangerous off of 2? Ballacino with the squeeze. Castro really had to lift off the gas. Ballacino able to clear on by, but it wasn't pretty.
No, it wasn't easy either. Certainly wasn't easy for Ballacino to get through there, but he's managed to get there, and Castro looks like he's really starting to suffer now. Not entirely sure why, because I seem to remember him coming in fairly late, but it seems that Ballacino and Piscotto have got the edge on him at the moment. Castro falling back. After that long pit stop we saw earlier on, we saw him get the lucky dog to get back on the lead lap again, but he had that long pit stop, remember, and after that his race has really been run from that point, and this is just rubbing salt in the wound. He's not even in the top 10 anymore.
Keep in mind, Castro spent 55 seconds in the pit lane during the last cycle. This is the battle going on for 2 laps down. So now what's going through your mind as a driver, Ewan, if you're in the cockpit here, knowing you're about 2/3 of the way through the race, 122 to go or so for many of these drivers coming up. What's going through your mind knowing you're essentially back in your battle groups and trying to make sure you don't do that?
Yes, yeah, keep off the barriers, for goodness sake. Keep off the fence, because it's no less important than what it was 2 hours ago. You've still got to keep your car straight, keep your panel straight, as we're seeing smoke coming through 1 and 2 right now. Sorry, 3 and 4 right now. Don't really know what that's all about, but yeah, keep the car straight and everything like that. You've just got to make sure that happens. But also, this race is running a little bit more green than I expected in the middle part. I said earlier on that I wouldn't be back timing and playing the games that Osman and all these guys are playing right now. I wouldn't have been doing it, but I would have been completely wrong, because this race has had a nice long green flag run at this point. We're coming up to 100 laps on that point. I know it's famous last words, but we've been running green for quite a while, and at this point the back timing of the strategy, very, very important indeed. Just stick to what you've got at this point, I would say, because neither of the strategies are too bad. It's kind of up in the air as to which one's actually better, so stick to what you've got, and you can't really do much to change it anyway, so you might as well just stick to it, and just go for it at this point. You can start to run that little bit closer to the wall and try and take a few more risks at this point, really. That's the only thing that really changes as a driver. The risk taking does tend to go up at this section of the race.
Good hard-fought battle amongst this fight for 4th position. Phillip let go by Dubois, that time down the front straightaway. But to get back to your point, absolutely, this has been an intriguing one, how this has all played out.
Osman's not too far behind these guys. He's going to be upon them soon. And let's not forget, he pitted last of these top 6 runners who are still on the lead lap, so he's been catching mains over the last few laps. We've seen the gap to the lead coming down and down, and that continues to do so, but he's got to make sure he doesn't get caught up in traffic. If he spends too long in battles like with these two, Phillip and Dubois, then he's going to be in trouble for this race, so he's got to be careful of that.
Give a shout out to some of these drivers that are continuing to chug along, and what has been some surprising efforts, I will say, from some of these competitors. Jesse Atchison, for example, give him credit. 35th position, I should say, for the number 5 car on your racetrack and your pylon. He's been bumped and banged And keep in mind, when there were changes for the Pro Invitational Series here to Darlington, to the track surface and whatnot, that changed how some of the drivers impacted their lines. From what I can tell from Attrition and some of the discussions on radio, that has been a big impact for his performance. He's still holding on to P14. Give him credit.
Yeah, I think anybody still in the race at this point deserves a lot of credit, because it's one of the most difficult circuits on the NASCAR schedule. I would say, if not the most difficult ovals, then it is up there, certainly. So, yeah, anybody still in this race at this point is doing very well indeed. We're coming up on 300, 400 miles nearly complete in this race now. So anybody still in it is doing very well indeed. And especially those who are multiple laps down, as you mentioned there. Because there's not a lot for them to race for, but just to get to the end of one of these events is an achievement within itself. So, yeah, all credit to those guys, multiple laps down, but still going.
David Rondoletto, of note, has elected to come onto the pit lane. Just running 13th.
Not long until the likes of Worth come in as well, because Rondoletto was the first last time around. He really kicks us off for a pit stop window, and then Osmond kind of closes it. So we've got a long stretch of pit stops coming up over the next 40 laps or so. But when is Maines going to come in? We're presuming he's still got 2 more stops to go. But when is that pit stop going to be? Because he's still losing time to Osmond slightly every lap. He's still losing time.
Indeed here. Taking a look at the battle going on for 9th position. Pisciacata currently holding on. Vallecino trying to gain up some positioning.
Been looking to the inside there, just getting a bit of air on the nose like we were talking about a little bit earlier.
We'll have to dodge Rondoletto, who is coming out of the pit lane. Seems to be far enough up the road to stay away. They have a car in front ducking in, and Jason Maines as well for scheduled service. And Maines missed the pit entry. Jason Maines not able to make the pit lane.
Oh, and he slides on his way on back onto the racetrack as well. So that's rubbing salt in the wound and gives everybody else a place up in front. But there's nothing more demoralising than accelerating back up to speed again after just missing the pit lane.
And that was that car you just seen in the backdrop, having that bobble coming off of turn 4, while this battle has started to situate. Separated by a few 100s last time by in terms of overall pace. We're at the mark, keep in mind, where there is one car on the lead lap. As a result of Jason Maines' mistake, Daniel Frederick is the only driver 1 lap down in this field.
Absolutely no competition for the lucky dog here, but I don't think he's that far away from being lapped himself, so I think he's got to be a little bit careful of that and make sure he stays there just in case there is a caution. For the moment, though, it's looking pretty good. We've seen a lot of close moments earlier on, but they've kind of dissipated now, and people are setting into a rhythm, so expecting this, well, not expecting it to go green all the way to the end, in all honesty, but I'm expecting this run to carry on for a little bit longer.
Vallecino find a way around here. Vallecino, keep in mind, 2-lap fresher tires compared to the 33. It's 23 when it comes to the train paints, because for some drivers, they have the opportunity to run with their own custom numbers, so to speak, on their cars. For example, the 2311 racing machine takes the paint scheme for Pisciacata at the moment.
Doesn't make our job any easier, though, does it, Justin?
It allows some creativity. I know it's a discussion point, but it's an interesting one to say the very least in some various aspects. Vallecino losing some ground now with the dirty air. A hornet's nest of cars are just up the road, keep in mind. You have Atchison, who has been an intriguing driver tonight. Rockwood, who's got his top 20. You have Topley and 19th that are being reeled in by this pack. And a car coming straight off the pit lane in Wesley Parker saying hello to the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting himself up to speed, but you can see now that the amount of grip he's got, look at that, absolutely phenomenal, the amount of grip, and it's almost taking him by surprise there. He'll be past those 3 cars in front very quickly indeed, so he'll be trying to make hay while the sun is shining for him. Car to the inside.
That is Alistair Topley, who nearly just wrecked, trying to move, I think, to the bottom to let by Atchison, and Atchison nearly ran over him as a result. That's that car you see now on the apron right behind him. This battle for position.
Saw him getting involved with Casey Cohen a little bit early on, if you remember, Alistair Topley. So, yeah, not the greatest day for him, I'm afraid, but he's still going at least a number of laps down. I think he's 19th now, about 6 laps down. So, yeah, it's not been his best night, but still in the race, as we mentioned.
There's that traffic we're talking about up the road now that could be factoring in for how this plays out. They're about halfway through their stint, a few laps away from lap 100 as there goes the fight. Ballacino into the wall.
Oh, what does Piscotta do about this traffic just up in front? Because, yes, Ballacino just got in the wall, but there is some lap traffic here that could slow up the car in front for him to just make some inroads. You can see already gaining a car length or 2 as Verth kicks us off for those front 6. He now comes down pit lane for the penultimate time with still about 115 to go.
To break down that situation easily, you see the pit stop delta on the pylon for Jordan Worth. There is the easy way of breaking it down where he can go long, he's got some flexibility, or he can try and split the run remaining up the middle, which would be around 55, 58 laps to go. We may see Worth say, let's come in for the final time, but the matter is, will it work out to try and overcut Maines? Is the biggest question on everybody's minds, with everyone else trying to go as long as they can.
So difficult to work out the strategy at this point in the race. It's so difficult to know how it's going to work out either. I think it's tipping in the favour of Maines at the moment. We'll see when he comes into the pit lane, but yeah, it looks like it's going in his favour for now. We've still got a good, what is it, 30 laps until Osman's expected to come in again, so the anticipation is going to keep us going. Certainly, we're really unsure as to who's on the best call here. We really are.
Here's my concern with Ali Osman, though. The strategy for it to work needed to chip away at the gap, right, in theory. He stabilized at 25 seconds behind. He's, if anything, not gained any ground for 20 laps on Garrett Maines in the stopwatch.
Yeah, it's been a while since he's made any inroads, and you're right, he does need to be making some right now. So that is a bit of a concern. It's just a case of, is that a pace thing? Is he holding something back for this very long stint that he's got? Or is this just necessary? Because he is saving fuel after all, and there's only so fast you can go while doing that. So, yeah, well, as we say that, he's gained about half a second as we started this conversation. So I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, that is a concern to me as well. I've been monitoring that, and yet that's not great news if Osman's going to try and win this one.
Part of the reason for the time loss was Garrett Maines had to let by Jordan Worth. That's why we're Worth trying to get one of his laps back. He is still 1 lap down, in fact. Daniel Frederick has also just ducked in. 100 laps to go, coming out 99 is on the board.
I still think Verth's going to be in front of Maines here when he comes out the pit like we saw last time. But obviously,
Nope.
With the tyres, there's nothing you can do to hold on.
Meanwhile, the traffic coming into play now for this battle for what will move into current 7th. But you're kind of nearly running over Blake Bottoms in the 851 machine. Bottoms finally lets by the 2. Ballacino, though, with the better run. Nowhere to take it, though. In the single file line, that is the exit of turn 2. He nearly drifted up into the wall. That was a bad arrow push coming off the corner.
Yeah, really bad there. And had to really check up to get his bearings straight again almost. It was a very close moment indeed. But you just see the lengths he went to there just to preserve his car and thinking long term, which a couple of these guys could have done with about 200 laps ago, in all honesty. So, yeah, it's smart driving at this stage in the race, but that doesn't negate the time loss that he's obviously experienced there. He's got to close those couple of car limps again now.
Coming in this time, overall race leader, Garrett Maines. He's now coming for scheduled service for the second to last time for this race. So that will, in theory, move Tyler Gary to the race lead. And now, it's the matter of will anyone try and go for an earlier stop than they may have planned for. For Maines, his target is simple, it seems. 52 laps or so.
Oh, pretty wide. Balacino down the inside, and he gets it.
That's Balacino able to make the move. Also some trouble at the other end of the speedway for Osman, where he got so loose, where I think he tried to enter the pit lane. The 13, I think, tried to come down last time by Ewan and missed the pit entry.
Wow. Clearly deciding that this 70-lap thing's not going to work anymore. I might as well just go for it. And, yeah, trying to get that bit of an undercut on Philip in front, trying to cover off Dubois as well, who's just come into the pit lane. So, wow.
And keep in mind, even though Maines is one lap down, the differential is about 14 seconds. Here's where a lot of that time loss came from. See him nice and slow here. Then all of a sudden just takes a left.
Yeah, he was definitely trying to come down pit lane there. There's no question about that, but way too quickly. And it can be very surprising here at Darlington, really. You'd expect the pit entry to be a little bit further round, but it seems to creep up on you every single time. And that's exactly what we've seen. Slightly strange that we haven't seen Osman try again and go in, but, you know, he's clearly happy to stay out there for a little bit longer, maybe.
Now I'm curious to know what Ali does. He might be on the audible path that, in this regard, it's not how you usually see it play out. Andre Castro has reeled in these cars as a result of some of this battling. Keep in mind, you see him getting passed by Garrett Maines to the backdrop of these two. Decent night overall, I will say, for Balacino. To come away with a potential top 10 would be amazing, with especially the start of the race he had. He's among what is 5 double-digit drivers inside the top 10 in terms of positions gained as Maine zips on by.
Yeah, absolutely. All these guys who've managed to pick their way through the field have done an absolutely fantastic job here today. So, yeah, full credit to him. And you might think that he's not really had a very particularly good race, because when this corrects itself, I think he's going to be 2 laps down, but it doesn't really matter. He's gained so many places, and a top 10 will be a big result for him today. Just as a mark of what he's achieved in terms of pure survival, and of course driving talent, which he has plenty of.
Tyler Gary coming in this time from the overall race lead. Very close on the commitment cone of note, so Gary has sacrificed the race lead. That leaves Philip and Osman, who are trying to stretch it as the only competitors who have a realistic shot on trying to take one less pit stop than the entire field.
I'm still baffled here as to what Osman was doing. What on earth was he doing so low on the racetrack trying to get in the pit lane? I mean, if you're going for this alternate strategy, then commit to it. Oh, but if you're going to in the pit lane, then why wouldn't you come in next time around? I really do not understand it, but he's staying out there now, and he's only got 3.5 seconds, or 2.5 seconds, excuse me, over Maines. So this pass is going to happen very shortly, and it's really not looking particularly good, I've got to say.
Osman just had an issue down the front straightaway again as well. Keep in mind, he had a bobble that's now lost him an additional second. That is at the inner end of the racetrack compared to the battle you're keeping an eye on your screens for 7th position. Garrett Maines has now officially passed by Ali Osman on track So Maines is in the net race lead just about by 4 seconds. He needs to close up to Phillip.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, is he in the net race lead, or is he counting Phillip as making one more stop in this race or not? I'm unsure. Here's a replay of how it was done, I believe. Yeah, anyway. It's,
yeah, just grubbing the wall.
Wow, that's a very strange problem, I've got to say. Very strange.
Bit of a big mistake to make at this point of the race. And what has been domination for 2/3 of the way for Elliott Sauer Esports' Garrett Maines. Here's a look back at the gaggle. Jordan Worf has now joined on in. This position battle has actually gained another car in Daniel Frederick as well, who has gotten within 1 second of Valentino's draft. There's some of the traffic being let go. That's top lead now, passing by Castro.
Oh, somebody in the wall. I didn't quite hear who it was. Oh, it's the blinking car behind. But yeah, gap for the lead is only 1 second at the moment. So even if Phillip is going all the way here, not looking great for him either. He's going to gain a little bit of time when he comes in the pit lane. Obviously, he's going to have those new tyres. But then Maines is going to be in about 10 laps later, maybe a little bit more. So yeah, it's difficult for Phillip to pull this one off. Oh!
Trouble! Turns 3 and 4. Castro drifts around 1 and 2, I should say. What a save for Castro. And now he's in the wall again. This could be trouble. Castro drifts back up the racetrack. Will he cross by the racing line? Yes, caution is out.
Wow. 85 laps to go. Surely nobody. Surely. Well, you never know, but this really throws the cat amongst the pigeons for the rest of this race.
It's a one-stopper no matter how you slice it now. A caution for Andre Castro after a green flag run that lasted more than 150 laps. 6 cars on the lead lap at the time of the caution. This was a two-phased one.
Yeah, I think the second phase is directly affected by the first, I've got to say. Just driving into the wall on the main straight is something you don't see very often. Maybe a little bit baffled and a little bit confused by everything that was going on around with all the other cars that were happening and whatever. But yeah, a couple of very strange incidents. We see this sometimes. You need a good rhythm in, especially these long races, and if you break that, then we've seen the results.
Bring the race leaders on down. Maines, Phillip, Osman, Worf, Gary, Dubois were the only drivers on the lead lap. Lucky Dog spot held on by Daniel Frederick. And now this becomes the true test of what strategy plays out in the end, but also can anybody beat Garrett Maines?
Well, on raw pace, it's going to be very, very difficult, but with the track position, Phillip does stand a slight chance here. He does stand a chance, so just got to wait and see, really. This is exactly how Selensky won the race yesterday. It was by staying out a little bit long and then getting a caution, getting the track position, and then he held it to the end. Admittedly, there was a lot less time to go in the race when that happened. However, it does show that if you get the lead around here, then you can hold on to it, and we'll see if Phillip can maybe stick it to Maines a little bit in this final run.
Just as you say that, Phillip has elected to get damage repair done instead, so he will not restart on the front row. Jordan Worf will. Yes, the man from bottom split himself, Jordan Worf, in a race-high second. Ali Osman third off the race out the pit lane. Gary Frederick rounding out the top 5 on that said race. Phillip drops down to 6. Dubois also got damage repair in 7th. As mentioned, Valentino was in the lucky dog spot. So now it becomes, when do you come down to pit? Because you have 82 to go. It's near identical. The laps to go when there was a caution flag in that NASCAR race you're referring to.
Yeah, but this situation, I'm trying to work it out in my head as I'm speaking at the same time. You know, do you come in early with, 60 to go and try and stretch that? Do you kind of back time it, or do you run a little bit longer and hope to catch the caution? Do you split the rest of this race in half? There are still a number of ways that you can attack this race from here on in.
Couple drivers trying to set up for wave rounds. Jason Maines rolling the dice. He's 28 laps into a stint. Topley looking to wave. Reed, Adam also looking to wave, I should say. We'll have 80 to go when the restart files up in a couple laps time. Significant repairs being done. This caution flag for the last dead zone car in the field in Phil Yaw, Blake Bottoms, and the caution trigger, Andre Castro. Those just tuning in, you can follow along with your favorite teams and drivers with RaceSpotTV/timing to follow along with where your competitors are. Again, that's RaceSpotTV/timing. 1 to go signal this done by. Pace lights are off. Now it gets intriguing. Garrett Maines, Jordan Worth, Tyler Gary, Ali Osman, Tyler Dubois, Agnel Phillip, Daniel Frederick. 1-7 cars, Curly Scorley, lap. Balacino, I believe, may have found a way to lose his lap.
Looks like it at the moment. But yeah, I think the only way that we're going to see Maines beaten in this race is if you get in front of him on this restart. Get in front of him, disrupt him, and then maybe you've got a chance. But from the inside, from the lead, in control right now, it's looking like a very difficult task indeed.
80 to go for the Darlington 500. Garrett Maines has been dominant for a good 2 hours. Can he keep it up? Green flag is out. Back it away. Jordan Worth holds on to second, but Tyler Gary looking to rip away third and does. Black flag for Daniel Frederick on the restart. So he was the lucky dog, I should say. He did not have all the cars pass by him before the restart. That's why he is now having to serve a black flag under green.
Going to be really painful for him, I'm afraid. He's going to lose that lap and a bit more, actually, in all of that. So, real shame for him, but a good start from Maines. A pretty good one from Worth as well. If I was to pick one driver from this top 6 who could maybe challenge Maines on raw pace, then I would have picked Jordan Worth.
Near wreck down the back straightaway. Wesley Parker just about looped at the whole back straightaway just behind this battle for position. We stay green side by side between Dubois and Phillip. The repairs again helping Agnel Phillip out. He's up to 4th position. New fastest lap as well. Garrett Maines yet again. This time it's a 28.925 for the purple lap.
Yeah, we've got not many laps to go now. These guys pushing as hard as possible, and there's not much tyre saving that has to be done here, because even if you split the rest of this race in half, you're only doing 40 laps really, and so you can get away with pushing really quite hard on these tyres. We're going to see the fastest laps we've seen all day from pretty much every single car in the field.
How right you are on that, Mark, because among the best laps, the top 3 all turned theirs last time by. Phillip was about a couple 100ths off his personal best. Dubois, 2 100ths of a second to be precise. Just a few laps away from the green light on fuel to make it to the end as well. Keep that mark in mind for these competitors now. A new purple lap. Garrett Maines at 28.920.
Yeah, very interesting moment, as you say, coming up in 5 laps. Will anybody back time this race to try and get a little bit of track position in the top 6 right now? Maybe if I was Osman, I would do something a little bit different here, because clearly he's not quite got the pace of the other 5, or maybe he's just had a bit of bad luck on this restart, but either way, it doesn't really matter. I would be trying something different, because otherwise, I don't think anybody's going to be able to overhaul Maines. If they just follow the leader this all the way around to the end of the race, then they're not going to beat him, so they've got to do something different.
That's going to be the critical part. It's also going to be very critical to keep up with the short run, too, to be able to set yourself up for that strategy gamble, to have that time in hand. But the clean air is really helping Garrett Maines pull off in a way. Gary still holding on in front of Phil. Meanwhile, he's just about lost touch to Jordan Worth. Gary's throwback machine to the old number 26 machines that used to run in the 1990s has still done a very solid job compared to the throwback to one of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Hendrick Motorsports machines.
Hey, Worth is closing this margin a little bit, isn't he? Half a second now. It was coming down by a couple of tenths in the last couple of laps. Maybe he's just got a little bit of something towards the end of this race.
See that time starting to shuffle a little bit. Keep in mind, Maines is trying a different line compared to some of these errors where they're trying the wall. Maines has been trying to do the line he did early in this race. Trying diamond off the banking in 3 and 4. Use the banking as a ramp. Near contact to the wall for Tyler Gary. Here comes the move. This is for third. Phillip drifts up. Gives plenty of space as Gary makes the move.
Yeah, he drifts up a little bit, but didn't drift up in front of Gary, which is what you really need to do to affect a pass around here. So just got to think about this one again and try again, because you know, when you're drifting up and you're drifting into the side of a car, they're always going to have the momentum on the outside line there. Either, you know, stick with the car and roll along the bottom as well as you can, or you've got to slide up in front of them.
Keep in mind that maneuver lost them 3/10 alone. Worth is gone. Out of reach for your top two, for the top two. Speaking of that pace, Worth has closed up the deficit to the race lead to under half a second. He is pushing hard. And you noted that a couple laps ago. He lost the time back. He's picked it up in spades.
Yeah, he has. He's really driving well at the moment. I said it just as the race went green again. If there's anybody in this field who can challenge Garrett Maines for the win of this race, then it is Jordan Worth. He's clawed his way through the field. It stays. Done a really fantastic job. He's actually led a few laps not so long ago, but now he's got a chance of leading the final one, which is, of course, the one that matters most. And yeah, he's just driving so well at the moment. He's pushing so hard, as are all of these guys, to be fair, but he is really chasing down Maines and giving him a run for his money now.
Lost some time back now with the dirty air, and this is going to be the tough part. Once you get within half a second, you start feeling the effects of running in the draft with the car behind, and if you aren't significantly faster, it can be difficult to fully claw your way through that deficit, and Worth's feeling the full blunt of that right now with the line he's taking, trying to match wheel for wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that awkward distance, really, around an oval like this. You've got to get within, you know, a lot closer to actually make a move, or even think about making a move. You've got to get right in the tail, but if you're within half a second, then they can kind of keep you at that arm's length, and that's what Maines is doing at the moment. It's very smart driving, and he obviously knows what he's doing. Just knows how to lead a race, and there is a certain way to lead a race. This is exactly it. Just keeping your rival at arm's length. Don't let them get into that bubble where they can actually have a go at you. Just keep them away just a little bit, and obviously that dirty air affecting Worth as well right now, as you say. It's making it very difficult for him to get within that bubble of able to make a move or not, and for the moment the answer is not. They're running away from the rest, but that means nothing to Worth at the moment if he can't get anywhere near to make a move for the race lead.
He's pushing so hard he just dragged the right rear fender up against the wall. No visible damage, though, on the BAM Racing throwback. You're inside the mark to make it to the end on fuel, and now it's to where, when these drivers elect to duck on down, it's going to be the big question. If you're Worth, what do you do, especially knowing you're staying within 7/10 here?
Well, if I'm Worth, I don't know what I'm going to do, but if I'm Maines, I will say one thing: I am not letting Worth pit before me. There is no way you can let Worth undercut you, because given how close these guys are at the moment, one lap could be the difference. It really could. So you cannot afford the 14 to get on pit lane before you. There's absolutely no way you can do it. So, in my opinion, you've got to be first down pit lane if I'm mains.
We'll find out the answers to how things play out in these closing stages in just a few moments. You're watching RaceSpotTV for live coverage of the 2021 edition of the iRacing Darlington 500.
Premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to RaceSpotTV's coverage of the Darlington 500 at iRacing's virtual Darlington Raceway. I'm Justin Brentz, alongside the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary with Tyler Maxson in the producer's seat for what has been a race full of attrition, a race full of strategy gambles, and in some cases, some big tempers and fisticuffs. It has been intriguing to watch here from Darlington, South Carolina, but with under 60 to go, coming to 59 laps to go, two drivers are up at the forefront. It's Garrett Maines, who has led for just about 2/3 of the race, up in front, and it's Jordan Worth looking to find a way to get in front of him, 1.5 seconds behind the rest of the field, almost 4 seconds back, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like it's going to be a two-horse race to the end now as Worth gets very, very loose off the exit. No, not going in the pit lane just yet, though. We've got under 60 laps to go. Oh, as there's a car going into pit lane now. I thought it was spinning up the racetrack, but it's all okay. It's, as I said, becoming a two-horse race right now. 1.7 seconds is the margin. If I'm Worth, though, the gap's starting to get big again. The short-run pace is very good for him, but it doesn't look like he's quite got the long-run edge. But if he comes in the pit lane before Maines, then he might well be able to get out in front, and then maybe he can do something. We saw it difficult to defend from Maines earlier on, but maybe when it's a little bit later in the race, he can give it a real good go. So I'd like to see Worth come in before Maines at some point around this track, maybe in 5 laps or so. Try and take advantage of the new tyres, try and get in the lead and hold on for the rest of the race.
For those just tuning in, we started with 36 cars. We are down to 20 running for the final few laps of this race. Some big DNFs ended early in this event. Malik Ray was among the biggest crash of the day, with Omar Diallo also getting involved. Matt Cucker had technical issues early. He hasn't returned. Andrew Freenosh, he parked early on. Jose Solis Jr., after some incidents, out of the race. J-Bo, after early damage, out. Alan Bowes, after smacking the wall, out, 26. Matt Busa, after taking a strategy gamble over 10, did not work out, out. And Jesse Atchison has just joined the list, bringing that total now down to 19 running. In our words, it's taken a lot of work to be among the 6 who are on the lead lap with any chance on getting a valuable position and a valuable finish in the Darlington 500. The battle you see on screen is for 5th position. That's Dubois in front. That's Osman, who was among the drivers trying to gamble on fuel before a caution flag was brought out just about 20-30 laps ago.
Oh!
Dubois is in the wall. Osman dodges him and moves up into the top 5.
How did they hold on to that? That is unbelievable. Dubois, first of all, the one in the wall, did a pretty good job, and Osmond, to avoid him, get through sideways, also managing to keep things going in the straight direction. That was unbelievable driving from everybody.
That could have been the caution right there that Worf may have needed, because Jordan Worf has gone from being within half a second behind Garrett Maines to almost 3 seconds behind, with the tires falling off a cliff and then some. Again, 6 cars are on the lead lap in Maines, Worf, Gary, Phillip, Osmond, and Dubois, who have varying levels of experience, but the one main common thread amongst most of them, they are frequent drivers in NIS fixed competition. That experience has been valuable for this race tonight.
Yeah, I think Verf is really suffering right now on the tyres. You can see the gap to the lead is increasing. Okay, you might think, you know, Maines is just turning it on a bit, but just look at the gaps to the others. Not really changing that much, and Gary and Phillip are starting to close on Verf themselves. So this is not good news for Jordan Worf at all. That's why I would have been in the pit lane not so long ago, to be fair, because he's not close enough to really affect that undercut anymore. Maines can just pit in 1 lap later and he'd be absolutely fine. So, yeah, this is not particularly great news for Worf. He just needs to get a little bit lucky with a late race caution, and then I think he's got a chance. His short run car is a lot better than his long run car. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Agno Phillip has opened the lead car pit window. He is in after only 32 laps. So we are now in the midst of the pit window. Now becomes the big question, who else follows? As Worf is already falling right back into the clutches of Tyler Gary.
Well, if they stay out too much longer, Phillip's going to be in front of the both of them, and I think that lap there, or this one just coming up now, is going to seal it. Verf and Gary are going to both be behind Phillip. Let's not forget, though, still 50 laps to go. These guys can go for another 30, probably. And, yeah, that means that they've got a big opportunity to come back at him a little bit later on.
Worf driving by some of the traffic, indeed, yes. And the big gamble of pitting early, too, is you get a caution flag, then that strategy goes bust. Perfect example, again, is what happened to Matt Busa in the early stages of this event after leading from the pole early on. Gary now within 1 second. There is a lap car in between them for the time being. That's Dylan Reed, who had already come in for a very early pit stop trying to make the move on the 14 and does.
And, of course, staying out late could also play into your favour if there is a caution when everybody else is coming, but you're still waiting to make yours. However, as you mentioned, it could backfire as well. So lots of different strategy decisions to be made. Not only what's the fastest, but which one carries the less risk at this stage in the race. To be honest, most of them carry quite a lot of risk, so it's a real difficult one for them.
It's going to be intriguing on how this all goes. Worf trying to hold on to a second place run. Gary trying to rip it away from him. See the view from Gary. Last time by, he gained 2/10. This time by, lost a 10. Here's the wheel movements too, and you can see how much you have to be careful with that wheel and how much you need to be careful with the throttle.
Oh, there we go. Nice catch, but he's doing this every single time. You know, it's making us nervous a little bit watching it, but he's doing this every time. He's coming into the pit lane. Oh, big slide. Nice catch. But can he get it in? Yes, he does. Nicely done in the end, but it's never comfortable here, is it? It's never comfortable getting on pit lane.
Able to make it under speed to the commitment cone. See how big that undercut goes for Tyler Gary. That leaves 4 drivers on the lead lap yet to come in. Agno Phillip, new fastest lap of the race at 28.909. Near contact with the wall the next time around, as Garrett Maines has said, you know what? It's time to come down. The overall race leader is in. Worf is back to the point.
Well, yeah, it's almost like that fastest lap from Phillip sent a bit of a shockwave and a bit of a message to Maines, because, you know, his lead is a little bit under threat here. He could be losing the lead. Let's wait and see. But I still think he's going to be able to get it back in a few laps' time. But it's just a little bit of cause for excitement for us as Dubois follows him in.
And now, as Philip makes his way around the racetrack, it might be close on how things cycle up, but keep in mind the cliffing of the tires will be the bigger factor more than anything. Jordan Worf is known for taking massive gambles in NIS at times. We mentioned his gambles in RTP, trying to go as low as he can. That worked out to some middle-of-the-pack runs for him at times. Do you think Worf would be willing to say, I'm willing to risk a top 5 to get this win?
Judging by how he has raced so far, I think he's all in for this. I think nothing but a win will do, judging by the way he's raced so far, as I say. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he could produce for us in these last few laps. I'm just looking for... Oh, sorry, I was a little bit scared then because I couldn't find Mains on the order, but he is there. It's okay. Phillips looks like the net race leader. But what about Worth, as you mentioned? Is he staying out for a caution? There's no way, surely, he's saving fuel to the end, judging by how he was driving earlier. So I think you're right. I think he's just taking another really big risk. Nothing but a win will do for him.
Worf has just slammed the wall, though. In through 1 and 2. Slow at the bottom of the racetrack, trying to regather it up. Trying to get back into pace. And Worf, I think with that slam, he said, you know what? Let's scratch that. He's now come into the pit lane. So, Agno Philp is now the net race leader by 3 seconds. Garrett Mains, though, is on 6 lap fresher tires. And you can hear the Jaws music starting to play. 9/10 last time by from Mains.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is going to be one heck of a chase and one heck of an end to the race. You know, if you're Philip at the moment, hold on for as long as possible. Just try and hold off Mains for as long as possible. And then when he gets there, defend for your life. Absolutely defend for it. As long as he's going for the win here. I just hope he's not happy to settle for second here. I really hope he's going to go for this.
It's a big play indeed to try and rip away a race win from someone like Garrett Mains with his domination in NIS fixed competition. Here's the thing that helps Garrett Mains, though. On top of the fresher tires, there is a ton of lap traffic. It's getting dangerous. Castro had a slow run at the bottom of the racetrack. Philip had to dive too wide with just about everybody.
Oh, now look, though. Mains is going to have to do the same here. Mains is going to have to go through the same traffic. He's got through on Balacino, and now they single file themselves out. But this is going to cost him a couple of attempts.
Still plenty of time to make the move. It's 8/10 now, the gap between first and second. Connor Rockwood ducks on down. Garrett Mains nearly runs over Jason Mains. And now, it's clean track from here.
Look at the difference between them. Look at the tyre difference. It's quite incredible. And, you know, over 35 laps to go here. 38 at the line. This is an unbelievably difficult task for Philip now.
Two drivers trying to roll the dice to stay on the lead lap for Pichicata and Balacino. But the race lead is on. Philip goes higher line. Mains waits for the move. Coming through the exit of turn 2, trying to wind up the run. Here it comes. Mains to the bottom. Philip up high. Mains goes for the side trap. Philip backs off and give Garrett Mains the race lead again.
Just see the tyre difference. Sorry, Philip just couldn't get a run on the exit there either, and Mains to the lead. There's nothing that he could do. Absolutely nothing.
And now, we wait to see what happens from here. Mains is all set here. Keep in mind, Ewan, there are some drivers who in less than an hour or two may be doing the open race for NIS.
Well, that's a big evening, isn't it? That's a long evening. Yeah, there we are. A lot of driving around. hopefully they're not tired of it by this point, because yeah, that's a long way around. But yeah, conserving a bit of energy, I doubt is a consideration for any of these guys at this point.
Maines only needs to hold on for 35 more laps in clean traffic. With the tire gambles going on from the 33 and the 34, there are 8 cars on the lead lap. Frederick would be in the lucky dog position if the caution was to wait. Speaking of which, apparently the 33 just about got in an incident with Ali Osman, who got across his front nose. No major contact, though. We stay green. And a blow motor down the back straight away. Blake Bottoms, his motor has expired after running without a hood since the first caution of the race. That car is running way on the bottom of the racetrack. Maines will zip on by them. Bottoms moving towards the safety of pit road. It appears we may stay green. Maines passes on by Bottoms, who's seen left side corner of your screen. Slow on the pit lane is behind the commitment cone. So we stay green.
And that's to Maines' delight. The last thing that Maines wants right now is a caution. Just keep things how it is right now. You want to keep his 3-second lead, and basically it's a 5-second lead here, because Philip's just losing pace, and Gary will be on the back of him soon. So yeah, this is basically a 5-second lead at the moment, and it will be very shortly. No cautions wanted at all from Maines at all. He just wants to control this race from here on in, and want to take this race victory, because of course if a caution comes out right now, there's going to be 9 cars on the lead lap with the addition of Frederick and the lucky dog.
Exactly, and this is in Maines' hands. 4 cars peel off in front. That is Ballacino, believe, ducking down for his final pit stop. He could only make it to 51 laps on the fuel. I believe 7 on the lead lap. Michigana trying to hope for a caution to get him any chance at a good finish. Still following along with Garrett Maines, who is in that clean traffic. He is pulling away by 0.6 a lap. He is the fastest car on the track, even quicker than Worf, who is on 4 lap fresher tires.
Yeah, it's quite incredible, and it just shows why he is the race leader at the moment. He's been the class of the field, with maybe the exception of Casey Cohen, who was really running him close earlier on in this race, but now that things have not gone Kerwin's way, it's really up to Maines, and he's starting to run away with this one now. And yeah, he's eliminated all the other NASCAR drivers. There were 5 of them at the start of this race. He's the only one left standing, and he's showing himself and the rest of the world why he is an NASCAR driver, and showing everybody else in this field why he's better than them.
For comparison's sake, for the NASCAR race, food for thought, a massive pileup was involving Garrett Maines, which involved an altercation after said race. It was not a pretty NASCAR race, in comparison's sake, Ewan, for Garrett. Or rather for Garrett. So, at the very least, this is vindication, or at least redemption, for the ESC driver.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of proving a point, really, to once again to yourself and to everyone else that, you know, I did have the pace in the race, but just wasn't quite able to show it because of things not going my way. So yeah, it's kind of it's quite nice actually sometimes to get to almost have a redo. It's not like not quite on the same stage, admittedly, but you know, it's still a very big stage against some very big competitors. And yeah, just to show that you do have that pace and you can run up towards the front is a very, very nice thing.
Garrett Maines finished 26th in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race with 8 incident points in official scoring. Looking at second, Tyler Gary on 5 lap fresher tires has reeled in the 24. And this could be the big cookie that Gary may be looking for one of his best runs in NAS this season. You can see that difference in the grip levels just with how Gary's able to stick that double apex for the exit of 2 off the corner.
Yeah, Agnew Phillip starting to struggle, really starting to struggle, and it's going to be a pretty big job for him to hold on for these last 25 laps. We heard about it with Mains earlier, that he might be able to do something, but absolutely no way. There's slightly more of a chance here, but I would still say odds massively in Gary's favour.
This could get very intriguing. Here we go. Phillip up high. Gary down low. Gary looking for the proper pull. Better run, though, for Phillip off the corner. Phillip not making it as easy as first thought for this position compared to what he did with Garrett Mains. Bit of a slide up the track, nearly up into the wall with a safer barrier.
Oh. You could just see, even on the entry there, he was just way too fast in here, Phillip, and now Gary's going to take advantage.
And they have another car joining them. Joseph Pichicata hit him. They bump. They slam. Gary makes the pass. Phillip bumping the wall. And that was scary, to say the very least. That could have been even bigger with Joseph Pichicata on fresher tires, bumping Gary down into the corner.
Yeah, it looks like Phillip's quite badly affected. Let's have another look at this again. Oh, they were.
Oh, well, they didn't touch it first.
Yeah, to be fair, they were having their own accident on their own, really. There, so I think it's hard to blame Biscotta for in any way. But Phillip, I just see there in those few moments we spent on board with Gary, he was going way too hard on the entry to the corners anyway, and nearly finding the wall himself. So yeah, it's quite remarkable that everybody managed to get away from that without any problems at all. But yeah, Phillip was just driving so hard to try and keep that second place that was bound to end up on the wall on his own anyway, I think.
So Phillip now with the demolished race car trying to hold on to at least third. Worf is still 4 seconds behind. The 33 is up to 8th with that squish to the wall, needing to close up 9 seconds to get to Daniel Frederick with about 20 laps to go. So with 6 cars on the lead lap, the main thing to again remember is Mains just needs this to stay green, and he's got himself another NAS victory, his 26th on the trot.
Yeah, you were saying about that being a scary moment for Phillip and Gary, but I think that was actually the scariest for Mains. I think he's really praying for this to stay green. Obviously, he would rather keep his 9-second lead than have a restack towards the end. So yeah, I mean, he would have been puffing out his cheeks certainly if he'd have heard about that. Surely he probably wouldn't have heard about it, in all honesty, but still, he would have been very glad to just, stay in the lead with that big lead and make sure that these guys further behind keep things nice and clean. It's getting towards the end, though, as we mentioned, and these positions need changing quickly if they are going to change at all. So the aggression is going to be the highest it's ever been in the race, and the likelihood for a caution has never been higher.
By the way, hearing Garrett Mains has acquired his first hit to the wall. He has a tiny crinkle to his right front. That is the only damage he's picked up all day. That was the cleanest car in the field before he scraped the wall a touch.
And that's exactly how you do it. That's how you win at Darlington. Keep your car off the wall, and then the rest will fall into place, and a good result will fall into place for you. That's exactly what Mains has done here today. Just all about survival for these opening laps, and let your rivals fall by the wayside, and then really turn on the pace at the end. That's exactly what Mains has done. Absolute textbook driving all day.
Right now, his biggest challenge left, passing by 3 lap cars who are all fighting with one another. Villiers lets on by Dubois, who lets on by Maines in turn. So Maines now has 2 more to pass. There is also Daniel Frederick, who is a few car lengths in front. This has been an incredible race. I will give this credit to these competitors for those who have been able to stick it out. Half the field did not make it to this point.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of physical ability, mental ability, and driving ability to finish on the lead lap after this many laps, let alone finish the race to the checker.
Yeah, finishing the race is really an achievement around here as Worth gets through on Philip, by the way. So Philip's going to be denied his top 3 at the end of the day. But yeah, the mental fatigue, especially of driving 367 laps around Darlington, I think is massive. Just stay that close to the wall for this long is quite incredible. And just to have that kind of pegging yourself back early on, you know, surviving the early moments where the circuit was at its most dangerous with all those cars around trying to make up positions early on. To survive all that is really good job to everybody still in the race. So yeah, absolutely hat off to everybody, especially those who are in the lead lap. You know, you might think that, you know, these guys nearly, like Dubois and Osman, then 20 seconds down on the field at least, 20 seconds down on the leader at least, but to only be that far down after 3.5 hours of racing very nearly we've had now. Very, very impressive.
3 hours, 14 minutes, 34 seconds to be precise. Since the drop of the green flag tonight, single-digit cautions. It has been intriguing from start to finish. 12 to go. This time by the stripe. Tyler Dubois trying to hold on to the lead lap with all this. Will Tyler Dubois hold on to this position? Or rather, this lead lap is going to be a big question. And it seems like Tyler Dubois is content on trying to fight this a little bit.
Yeah, possibly. He's staying in front for now. It's certainly not pulling off and letting Maines have this one. He'd rather stay on the lead lap if he can. But obviously he's not going to risk both of these cars to do so. Still 6th place for him is a fantastic result in my opinion. For him to be able to get. So yeah, he's not going to risk the car certainly, but he's certainly willing to stay in front if he can.
He nearly spun it around in front of Maines. Maines to the apron to dodge. That could have been the biggest moment of the race, coming to 10 laps to go. Maines clears him either way. That could have been a big moment of this event as Maines takes the 10 to go signal.
Pisciotto as well, trying to get through on the inside line with some new tyres. It's quite busy here, and Maines is going to be covering his eyes almost. Doesn't really want to be here right now. With only 10 laps to go, these people trying to get positions towards the end. He's just trying to conserve a lead as Dubois has really lost out through that turn 2 there.
I believe he may have nearly nicked the wall there. That's why so many cars passed by in terms of positioning. A lot of those cars are not on the same lap cycle, though, compared to that position. Now down to 9 laps to go for Garrett Maines. And no other cars around Maines at the moment. For Garrett Maines, if it stays green, this would be win number 80 officially in iRacing competition in 2021. And what would be his 1,123rd overall oval victory.
Astonishing numbers. Really is. Absolutely astonishing numbers. So you can tell he's a well-seasoned driver, and won't be unused to this feeling of, you know, just winding down those laps, keeping control of that lead, and just keeping everything safe towards the end of this race. This is a very familiar feeling to him.
7 to go. Here's the look for Maines and what has been smooth driving from the operator.
just as well, done some maths on the numbers you just said. 80 wins this year, this will be, you just said. That's an average of winning every 3.5 days. Incredible.
He's an incredible driver, known for his ability in the sim for many years on iRacing, working his way up to the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series this year, known for his ability to find raw speed from anything you give him with the steering wheel. And this victory, too, would put him within 3 of 19th all-time in oval competition. 5 to go this time.
Just keep it on the road and don't go anywhere near that wall. You can see, well, he's still pushing quite hard because he's quite near there, but there's nobody around to worry him, no lap traffic, nobody really coming up behind him. Just run your laps, hit your marks, and everything else will fall into place. There's absolutely no reason to even be contemplating a look in the mirror right now.
Coming up to 4 to go. 4 to go for the Darlington 500. And the margin continuing to grow to nearly 10 seconds for Garrett Maines. Keep in mind, it wasn't easy in the beginning. He had to run behind Matt Busa, but had the right strategy with the time of the first caution. And now, with 3 to go, he's looking to cap off what has turned into domination station since about lap 60.
The other admirable thing as well is that while all the other strategies were going on around him, not only in this final section of the race with Phillip, but also with Osman in that middle part of the race where he had that long green flag run, you know, he kept his head down, he knew that his strategy was going to be the best one, and he knew that no matter what strategy he was on anyway, his pace was going to be able to be enough to get him out of trouble. And very commendable indeed to just not worry about everybody else and just focus on his race. Remarkable focus on and confidence in his own strategy.
Lap and a half to go for the place they call Too Tough to Tame. Garrett Maines has put on a clinic, but the race is coming to its white flag. Final lap for the Darlington 500. Maines has been well known for his domination in NIS fixed competition for years. He's won championships at this level. He's the point leader and the wins leader in all of NIS for fixed in 2021. And now, for the 26th time in NAS competition, he'll take a checkered flag. He's your winner of the iRacing Southern 500. The Darlington 500 goes the way of Garrett Maines. Tower Gary second, Jordan Worf third.
We have absolutely run out of words to describe how good Garrett Maines is at the moment, and yeah, there's no doubting that he was going to win this race here today. We had hope with others running him close for a short while, but really there was only one true pretender at the end.
Maines gets the chance to burn it on down, winning by nearly 10 seconds exact. Make it 10.2, the exact margin. A clinic of a Darlington 500 for Garrett Maines. Celebrations are now underway for the ESC driver. Let's take a look at your race results. It's Garrett Maines who wins the Darlington 500 over Tyler Gary and Jordan Worf. Agnell Philp rounds out the top 4 with Ali Osman, the final car on the lead lap. Albert Dubois in 6th, Ben Frederick in 7th, Vichicata in 8th, Valacino and Jason Maines, your top 10. Among the other cars who were 2 laps down was Andre Castro, who finished in 11th tonight. 3 laps down went the way of Wesley Parker behind your top 10 cars. 13th position went with Octavio Rondoletto. 14th with Phil Young, with Reed in 15th. 16th went to Adam with Top Lead in 17th. The last car running went to Connor Rockwood with Blake Bottoms, the first DNF. Jesse Atchison finished the race 64th down. Wyatt Tinsley finished in 21st, 150 laps down behind your top 20 competitors. Casey Kerwin, 159 down in 22nd position. Logan McAnally, 23rd. Brutzenek finished in 24th. Matt Busa, 25th. Bose, Patella, Holzer, Solis Jr., Brinosh, the top 30. Joseph Galata finished in 31st. Parker Alexander, Matt Cucker, Malik Ray, Omar Diallo, Trevor Perry, rounding out the 36 drivers. It was an intriguing one tonight for the Darlington 500. Ewan, it was Garrett Maines, though, who put on the clinic for 2/3 of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. He was absolutely the best man in this field. There can be no doubt about that. And he asserted that dominance throughout, especially the second half of the race. Basically unchallenged for the last third. There's no doubt about that. But you just see by the attrition rate there and also how many laps behind the finishers were. I think that really puts into perspective how good Garrett Maines is. You know, putting some really, really good names, 5, 6 laps down. And I know some of that's due to attrition and how difficult this circuit is, and we give the circuit quite a lot of credit for that, but Garrett Maines at the end of the day put those guys that many laps down with partly his pace.
It was the dominating race, to say the very least, tonight for Garrett Maines again, leading almost 300 laps for the Darlington 500, take home an NIS full distance victory. An impressive one from Darlington Raceway tonight in what was domination station from the track they call Too Tough to Tame. Keep in mind, there is one more full distance race left to go from Phoenix Raceway on NASCAR's calendar, and then it's clear sailing from there. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from some of the action tonight. And remember, it was Matt Busa who controlled the pace early on before taking an early strategy gamble, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't quite pay off, though, did it? Because he got trapped a lap down in the end, and that was a bit of a shame. This is why, because of this caution here. In the end, Malik Ray, bump drafting down the back straight, ended in disaster for him and a number of others.
One of the biggest crashes of the day. Then the tire spin here kind of shuffled out much of the field. Maines was able to break off in a way on some of the restarts afterwards. You see how big that stack up was. Majority of the drivers are winning black flags. But incidents such as this one had plagued the early stages of the race and in turn led to, in part, the 18 DNFs of the 36 entrants. And essentially from that point on, from that caution forward, it got interesting. Kerwin tried to save fuel to make it a 2-stopper. Was looking comfortable until that incident, and then the race changed from here with this caution flag popping up amongst these cars and some of these competitors having some near close calls as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Osman was trying to make the strategic call work, but there you can see him missing pit lane. That was a real detrimental thing to his race. We don't think he would have been able to manage it anyway, but in the end it didn't quite matter because of the caution that was going to come out there. He is missing the pit lane in a very strange manner, I have to say. Yeah, it was just not to be for him in the end. As we mentioned, Garrett Maines was certainly in control at this stage.
Eventually, though, the intriguiness popped up here. Incident down the back straightaway. Throws all the strategy cards out the window, and from there on out, it was smooth sailing operator for Garrett Maines. Jordan Wolf at one point was able to hold on to second, try to put on a great fight. That eventually fell to the wayside. Tyler Gary He eventually found his way as high as second for the checkered flag, and several close calls came into play. But Phillip attempted the undercut on tires. That didn't play out, and ended in tears for Phillip with this contact here in 3 and 4. And in turn, that's the story of how Garrett Maines in turn was able to break away and win by more than 10 seconds over Tyler Gary, with 5 cars, just 5, Ewan, on the lead lap. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a very attritional race, but a brilliant one for Garrett Maines. It was just very, very attritional early on. I was a bit surprised about it, I've got to say, but very, very enjoyable. I did really enjoy the race. I hope everybody at home did as well. So yeah, what can you say other than a really great drive from all of those who, especially those who are up front, but all of those who got to the checkered flag.
And with that, it's time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage of the Darlington 500 from iRacing's virtual Darlington Raceway on RaceSpotTV. For our producer, Tyler Maxson, for my co-announcer, Ewan O'Leary, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your night. Congratulations to Garrett Maines, your winner of the Darlington 500.